All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another Sunday, another podcast episode. I feel like I say the same thing every time, but I'm out of things to say after like 80, almost 90. I'm like almost 90 now. I don't know. How have I been doing this so long? Crazy. Anyway, welcome to the show. Hello.
Hey, how's it going? I am DawnSR.
You are. That is you. What does
That is me.
DawnSR do?
Yeah, so I'm a speedrunner. I've done other stuff, but if you've heard of me before, it's almost definitely Sonic. I
Hmm.
do Sonic speedruns, a whole bunch of them, and YouTube content for the speedrun as well. Been around for quite a while now.
Oh, we've all been around a while. Well, let's find out how long a while is. So, when did you start?
So the funny enough, like my first experience speedrunning, if you take it all the way back before I was even like really thinking of it as speedrunning, I want to say is like 2012, 2013 when it was the HD port of Sonic Adventure 2 came to like modern consoles, which was like 360 and PS3 back then. I think it also came to Steam, but I didn't have a PC back then. And me and my cousin grew up playing that game so much, Chow Guard and all the missions, trying to actually 100% the game. And so when that came out, he had the idea to just hang out in a call and see who could beat Hero Story the fastest. And let's fast forward 10 plus years. I've been top 5 in that category for like 3 years straight now. Kind of funny looking back at that. But yeah, I remember we did that race. I think he won, which is the funny part. Uh, and I remember going on YouTube and looking up some glitches and stuff, and I ended up finding like super bouncing, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. I want to try that out. And just messing around with stuff, super bouncing everywhere that didn't matter at all. And then after that, I was kind of like, okay, that was cool, and then moved on with my life. I was playing other games and stuff. Until eventually, I would still get that stuff in my recommended. So I would go and click on them, and I would leave comments on people's runs and stuff. And they're like, "We've seen comments from this guy a couple times. Why don't we try to like get him into the community a little bit?" Um, and there was people that reached out to me to join their Skype groups because they're like, "Oh, this guy's interested in Sonic Adventure 2 speedrunning. We should try to get him in." Um, which is crazy in hindsight,
I haven't heard
just
of
from YouTube
something like that.
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you know it was a long time ago because it was Skype groups, not
Hmm.
Discord or anything.
Yep. So, do you know like what year that would have been?
That was probably in like 2014. There was like a little
Oh.
bit of a gap time too where I wasn't really thinking about like SA2 as much. Like I was watching like the Fi-Fis and stuff like that back then. And I remember trying out SMS as well and seeing like if I would like that and Luigi's Mansion. I tried out like a lot of different games actually, but and then I think I tried out Sonic Adventure 1 before I did SA2. But yeah, the minute that somebody from the community reached out to me and was like, "Oh, we should like hang out and talk about the game," I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's my community."
Fair. It's a lot of like GameCube era, it sounds like.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's all GameCube. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they actually for whatever reason make up for a lot of good speedruns. I mean, obviously there's good speedruns on every platform, but yeah, thinking about it, pretty much any game I thought about was GameCube, so that's fair.
Yeah. It's interesting how like good that library is. Like partial casually and then like yeah, there's a lot of good speedruns there. It's funny because it's like the console I'm least familiar with. It's the only one I've never owned. Unless you technically count like a Wii, has the support, but I never
Yeah.
had a controller for it, so I could never take advantage of it. So, it's like this forbidden realm. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, GameCube was a really cool console. It's kind of crazy thinking about that it was one of the ones that like didn't sell as much because yeah, that some of my favorite games ever are on that. Like I love SMS, Luigi's Mansion. It was the console that brought over Sonic games to Nintendo consoles. And every title that they had on there was really solid. Like I think I'm a Sonic Heroes hater, but I'll still even admit that that's a pretty fun game to play,
I
and
think
got a lot
most
of
people are
people into
Heroes
the
haters,
series.
so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, it's Sonic Heroes after all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if they remake it, they got some work to do.
Yeah, but that's the fun thing about, the Sonic games that, just kind of exist. They usually are very broken, which in
Mhm.
turn makes them fantastic for what we do.
Yeah, definitely. Heroes is a crazy game if you've never seen a speedrun of that one before. It's like one of the most button pressy speedruns I've ever seen. It'll definitely destroy your hands.
The unfortunate part,
Yeah.
but we all gotta make physical sacrifices in some way, I guess.
Yeah, I've just learned. I'm like, okay, the thing that we learned is icing your wrist is really nice after sessions. You got to do your
Mm.
stretches, and honestly, for me, I just take break days now where I'm like, yeah, I'm not speedrunning today. I'll go play an RPG or something. I'll be fine. And like, dude, it does wonders. But back when I was grinding like 4 or 5 hours a day for a time or something, it's like, nah, my hands are cooked. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it is definitely intense. It's a workout,
Definitely.
except not one that really benefits you in a physical way. Just
Yeah,
like,
you'd think we'd all had like really strong risks, but it actually just kind of breaks them down somehow.
yeah,
Unfortunately.
expectation, strongest wrist, reality, carpal tunnel
Exactly. Yeah.
every time. All right, so you started with like just random GameCube,
Mhm.
or is so like you splits and did you record them or was it just like kind of a for fun thing?
Yeah, at first it was really just for fun. I tried to learn SMS and that was like way too hard because I don't think there was that many resources back then. And also like I was a lot worse of a gamer back then. I was like super casual. And so trying to do some of the like really precise stuff I saw in like world record, I was like, yeah, I don't even get it how people are doing those things. Um and also with SMS, it was a game that I had probably beaten like twice growing up. So like I knew the game decently, but I wasn't super familiar with it. So I think by the time I got back around to like SA2, right, I was like, okay, I know this game. Like, and that's always why I recommend pick a game you love as like your first one because it's the one that you played a lot, one that you understand really heavily, and so it almost feels natural to just start trying to escalate that and bring it to a higher level. Um, so I think for a while it was just me casually doing it, and I would like have a timer on my phone.
Hmm.
That was pretty
Nice.
much it. And I think at the time they didn't have. I mean, they had live split. There was also I think like I want to say XSplit, but I think that was the streaming one, right? I forget. There was another
It's a
program.
letter split, but yeah, I always forget
Mm,
which letter it is. But yeah.
yeah. Um. So yeah, there was those, but I didn't. I think I used them sometimes just for RTA, but towards the end they actually went to IGT. So by then I did sort of like make a scuffed little layout. Um, I slapped like a random picture or logo on there and called it a day with some splits, and then just started running. Used my laptop microphone. It's like the worst audio imaginable if you listen back to it. You can like hear TVs and people talking in the background. Then you'll just randomly hear me. And I'm like 10 years younger at that point, so I'm like super high-pitched voice in comparison.
Hmm.
It's really funny looking back at. But I was able to somehow get a pretty solid time for back then. I think I was like nearly top 20 or something by the end of it, and which is kind of crazy to me because I very much was like the casual speedrunner where I saw a hard skip and I was like, nah, that doesn't sound like fun. I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not trying to learn all that. I just kind of want to play through the game, mostly glitchless, and just kind of have fun doing it. And as soon as I stop having fun, I'm just gonna move on. Um, so I was kind of surprised that I was able to get such a good time, but I think speedrunning was a lot more niche back then, so there was a lot less people actually doing it. That's probably really the only reason why I was so high on the boards.
Speaking of boards, this is a pre SRC era, isn't it?
I don't know. I think when I first started, yeah, but then I want to say my first submitted run was like 2015 or something.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I mean that also might have been retroactive because I know back then one of the people that reached out to get me into that Skype group, he went and like found people's runs and would just put them on the board just to help fill it out. So
Okay.
I think that first one was just one that he saw me do on Twitch and then retroactively added. Um, so yeah, I don't probably towards the end I think SRC was a thing. Um, but yeah, it is crazy to think about doing speedruns predating SRC because it's all we know now.
Yeah. I mean, I think back before that, there was obviously Speed Demos Archive, but that only showed like the record, right? So how
Exactly.
were there boards? You would need like your own wikis or pages or whatever. Ugh. I'm glad I did not grow up in that era. It would have been too hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah, for sure. I think they did. If it wasn't there, I know one that I frequented a lot. They did actually have one for Sonic. It was called the Sonic Center. Let me see
Mm.
if this thing is even still up. It is. I don't know if it's running it. Like, I don't know if people are actually paying much attention to it. Oh, you know what? There's actually still submissions to this day. So that's cool.
I
But yeah,
wonder how much
that
it
was where
varies from
you would.
SRC.
Yeah, I mean, for this one, it was more so along the lines of like ILs though. It wasn't really for RTA, but I still do stand by that this still has like one of the best ways to like I don't know, this still has like one of the best boards. They had like a color ranking system where if you were like top 20%, you had a red time or something like that, and then it goes down by each like 20%. And so it was like a big goal. Even like a few years ago, I went for getting all the red times and every single IL in the game. Which I mean, if you know SA2, there's like 100 of them, so it's actually kind of hard to do. But I was able to pull it off. And looking at it, they're still pretty solid. A lot of them have been knocked down pretty far, but I still think that's like a really cool way to incentivize competition that's not necessarily a world record, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a fun idea.
Hmm.
SRC doesn't have anything quite like that.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Hmm. But usually people don't focus on ILs on SRC. Like a lot of the
Hmm.
IL boards I usually see are off site somewhere, various spreadsheets and whatnot. But
Yeah.
it is fun. Good for practicing for the full thing.
Hmm.
And then it usually has its own things like do this strat that you just is not realistic for the run or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess this is still good for movement, but I'm never doing that in an attempt.
It has its
Yeah.
merits.
Yeah, let me see. My first submitted run on SRC was from oh wow, it's almost to the day, 9 years ago.
Hmm.
October 25th on 2015. So my first submitted run. Um, but I had already been around for quite a bit at that point. And that was still submitted when I was playing on Xbox.
Hmm.
So I had no way to record it or anything. So I think that's probably why I wasn't really submitting. It's because I couldn't put a video. But then after that, I got my PC. And I think I ran through, let's see, my last one was June 2016. And that was the time that was like, I think 23rd, 24th on the board. Um, And it's funny that I left it at that run because I wasn't even paying attention to in-game time because when you switch timing method, everybody's kind of like, oh well, I'm still focusing on my old goals from the one before. So my focus was just get sub 40 in real time RTA, and I wasn't able to get that with this, and I kind of just lost interest a little bit for a while. So I was like, I'll just upload this one and I'll come back to it when I come back to it. And that took quite a few years. But the funny thing about that time is that it was just barely a sub 30 in IGT. It's like a 29:57 or something. And so I had countless people when I came back that were like, "Oh, I used your run as like a reference of what I needed to do to get that time,
Hmm.
to get the 10-minute barrier break." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool actually that the timing method I didn't even pay attention to ended up mattering more."
Hmm.
So that was kind
So
of cool.
you just mainly focused, and this is SA2, right?
Mhm.
And so that was just the primary focus for like a year.
Yeah, I was just trying to get sub 40 back then. And then yeah, I guess we can just jump forward now to when I came back, but pretty much the inspiration was COVID. For the
Did you
longest
take a
time,
break completely from speedrunning?
yeah, I was done with
Oh,
speedrunning from 2016, basically for like almost 5 years.
wow. Okay.
Um, yeah, so when I came back, people were like, "Whoa, that's actually crazy." And I had gone during that time because I was really getting into grinding like competitive multiplayer games. So I was doing like I was really big on League of Legends. Funny enough, for a long time, I joined like an amateur team for that, and I was really grinding out scrims and matches and tournaments and stuff. That it was a lot of fun. But eventually, League of Legends is a lot, so I was over that. I was grinding out Overwatch for a bit too, so I just didn't really have the time anymore for speedrunning because it was just such a side hobby anyway at the time. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna move on and do other stuff. But by the time I came back, I had spent so much time grinding competitive games and learning how to learn that when I came back and was trying it out, I was like, why don't I just learn everything now and really go full throttle on this and make it my main thing for a little while? Here we are, like 4 years later. Was not a little hyperfixation for a year and then move on with my life. It is like this is my life now.
You always
Uh,
get pulled back in every time.
yeah, it's fun. Like I do love speedrunning, and I've been able to meet so many cool people through it. Like it would really be hard for me to actually leave this time.
Oh well. Guess you're stuck.
Yep, stuck here forever now.
hmm So, what was the grand return looking like?
Yeah, so COVID happened. I moved cross country because I'm from California, but my fiance was going to law school at the time in Boston. So I moved out there, and I was like, man, like I don't really. It was around the time I was like kind of burning out of League as well. So I was like, I really don't have anything to play. And then Among Us started popping off.
Yep.
And one of my old friends from the SA2 community would host weekly Among Us lobbies. So I was like, I am so bored. It's COVID. I'm stuck in the house. I can't do anything. Can't find a job. Whatever. I'm just gonna join these weekly lobbies because this is fun. At first, I was just watching for a little bit, and I was like, why don't I just play? Um, and then I ended up doing that, and I ended up meeting like KD4, like the goat of Sonic speedrunning. Ended up meeting D Trader One, who's one of my really good friends. He had the 180 emblems world record for a while. Is also just really really smart guy. So I started meeting all these people, and I'm like, oh wow, I actually really like the community still somehow. Crazy enough, completely different faces, but I still really like the community. And Trader was basically like, if you ever want to get back into the game, let me know, and I'll teach you everything you need to know. And at the time, he was like second place on the board, so I'm like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. And so I took him up on it, and we were just hanging out in calls all the time, and I was asking him a ton of questions, and I was just preparing for like a month or two. And my first run basically blew my old one out of the water by like 3 minutes or something. And everybody's just like, "Whoa, who is this guy? Where did he come from?" uh, Outside of the people that were in the Among Us lobbies, they knew who I was, but everybody else was just like, "Oh man, he's like definitely making waves." And in the first year, I took my time that was barely, top 100 anymore over the years. It had gone that low, and got fourth place within the same year of coming back, which was honestly insane to me. Blew my mind. I didn't even think I was ever going to get that far.
Wow, so you really just went ham with that run.
I did, yeah. I was unemployed at the time. I was just doing school, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend all my time on this.
Well, I guess it worked out pretty well then.
Yeah. Yeah, and ever since, I think it was November 2021 that I got that. So it has almost been 3 years. I've never left the top five in that time. Like, people have beaten me out of fourth. I think right now I'm fifth on the leaderboard. But I've somehow held that for 3 years straight, despite the game being the most competitive it's ever been. I don't think I'm going to keep it for very much longer, though. There's very good people right behind me, so I'm scared for my life.
But you've been constantly fighting back, right? So,
Yeah, until like recently. So after that, I think that the time was a 22:24, and the 21-minute barrier is something that no one else had ever gotten outside of KD4, who has held world record since 2018. No one's ever taken it. Most competitive category in all of Sonic speedrunning, by the way, and she has held record for like what is that, 6 years straight now? I want
And
to
she's
say
been
it was
so far
2018.
ahead for
Yeah.
a long time of that too.
So I was like, oh, why don't I try to push and be the second person to ever get a 21 in this game? That would be really cool. And I was so close, like 20 seconds away after a year. I was like, oh, this is going to be not that bad. And it took me over 2 years to get it. I didn't end up getting it until January of this year. Um, and yeah, that was a hell of a grind. It was crazy. Never had anything like that. But I was able to pull it off finally, and that was very nice. So now I'm like kind of taking my break because I'm so burnt from the game. If someone beats me soon, it's like it is what it is, man. Like I'm fine losing my top 5. It just will show me how much the game's grown, right? That like having a 21 and isn't enough for top 5 anymore. That would be absurd in and of itself.
Yeah, and records like mid 20 or something, right?
Yeah, let's see. Katie in late 2022 got a 2053. And the
Wow.
crazy part is no one else had a 21 then. So she was literally a full minute ahead of everyone else. And in the pretty much 2 years since then, she is actually, or like people have really caught up to her. Iden now has a 2107, and Flub recently got a 2123. So they're definitely knocking on the door. Like I don't think either of them wants to grind it out quite yet, but I would give it like I think next year there's going to be a new Hero Story record, which is crazy to say because I thought that run was perfect. Like I never thought it was going to be beaten type of stuff, but it's speedrunning. It always happens.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going to stand forever.
Yep. So yeah, I guess what makes the run cool? Let's talk about the run itself.
hmm Yeah, so Hero Story in particular. I mean, SA2 is really fun as a whole with like Dark Story and everything, but I love Hero Story. It scratches that like button pressing itch like no other game ever has for me. um, if you haven't played SA2, you have the 3 different play styles. There's Sonic, which is the speed character. You have Tails. Instead of flying, he's in a mech, unfortunately. And Knuckles, who's trying to find 3 pieces of the Master Emerald, the treasure hunting gameplay style, we can call it. All 3 of them are awesome. I was not a fan of mech for the longest time, but once you understand how to like deal with the clunkiness of the characters, it's actually really fun. And like, if you watch someone who's running the speed run, and then they go watch a top runner, their reaction's going to be insane because they're like, "How do you get the character to move like that? It actually just doesn't make sense." um, and honestly, kind of same thing with Sonic. There's a lot of really cool movement tech that he has. Like, there's so many things that have to be going through your mind as you're trying to go fast as Sonic. Like, you have stored speed in your spin dash, but in this game, spin dash takes like a minute, or not a minute, a second to charge up, right? So you have to like start charging your spin dash early. You want to be spin dashing down slopes. There's the bounce bracelet that can allow you to do stuff with skewed gravity, as well as super bounces, bounce excels. There's just like a crazy amount of tech. If you go and watch the run and watch a top runner, it's so different from a casual playthrough. Like they don't even look like you're playing the same game, really. Um, and my personal favorite of all the playstyles, though, is Knuckles, the treasure hunting. There is no gameplay in any game ever that is like that. It's very unique. And Knuckles' movement in this game in particular, like he has the same sort of playstyle in SA1, but his movement in Sonic Adventure 2 is just like one of the best in the whole series, I think. There's just so many cool clip outs, tricks, fun movement tech in his playstyle, and there's just infinite depth. Like there's just one guy. He's really smart, like actual like scientist job. He's like a researcher in his day to day. He literally spent like 2 years just streaming one stage, breaking down the science behind it, and there's just like this giant document that he worked on over the years, and has so many YouTube videos where he just turns it on, plays and talks about it, and like shows off random stuff for like 30 minutes.
Hmm.
It's just random rambles that like no one's really going to pay attention to, but once you start really loving the game and you're watching them, you're like, wow, this is awesome actually. Like someone could basically do a dissertation on this one Knuckles stage, and like they probably wouldn't be able to talk about everything.
Wow. Yeah, I know it's really unique in a speedrun sense because you have to do incredible like routing on the fly because every time they're going to give you different locations.
Hmm. Yeah, and the interesting thing is, even though there's like, so the first time you load in, there's 1024 sets that you can, combinations you can get basically, and then if you die, it expands it to like 10,000, or if you restart, it does the same thing. So yeah, I mean, you start seeing the same flows, right? Because obviously they have some sort of like algorithm or whatever that determines so that the pieces aren't just right next to each other on accident. They try to make it so that they're going to end up being on opposite sides.
Mm.
Um, but you sort of start to get the same flow, and this is something that only really comes after like hundreds of hours of playing the stage, right? And this is for each stage. There's 5 of them for Knuckles, 4 for Rouge. You have to get like an incredible level of mastery to be able to play them at a top level, um, where those routing calculations and thoughts in your head just become second nature, you know. But it takes a ridiculous amount of time, and I will say that's probably like the biggest barrier to entry to playing it. But the nice part about it is that even playing it normally doesn't lose that much time. And they have a hint system in the game where it'll like tell you more information about where the piece is if you don't know. Because we memorize each piece's first hint, and that'll be how we know where to go, because those are actually unique. Um, it's pretty crazy. But ultimately, if you're trying to get into it, and I would definitely recommend it if you like Sonic games, it's a great starter one. This is like the only thing that might hold you back, but ultimately, like if you just run through it and get all the hints, it's not going to lose you that much time. Like it's not going to hold you back crazy, and then eventually you'll start to get the hang of it, you know. And that's exactly what I did when I learned casually. It's not terrible.
It definitely sounds complex just because there's so many different things you'd have to remember, and that's just for one
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah, and speedrunning in general, I think it's as complex as you want it to be. You know, you could go totally glitchless and just play the game normally, even if it might be really slow. Like some games, like a Zelda game where they have like these massive sequence breaks or whatever, that might be a little bit different. But I mean, there's still glitchless categories for those, right? So like that's the thing I love about speedrunning is you could really play a game however you want, even if you don't even want to submit to the boards. Like use turbo or whatever, man. Like just you know, like do what you want, make it fun for you. Ultimately, this is just a fun hobby, so um yeah, definitely make of it what you want.
Very true. Yeah, and everyone has their own play style, and that's the fun part. You can
Hmm.
play your play style. Nothing's
Exactly.
stopping you. You can do it.
Yeah. There's one thing that me and I mentioned Trader before. There's one thing he always talks about, and he wants to have like a game show where you get like a game's top runners and show uh, basically have them on there, ask them a whole bunch of questions about like tech and random stuff from the game. And one of the things that he wants to do is have it be like where you get somebody's gameplay like without their stream overlay or whatever. It's just pure gameplay, and see if you can guess who it is.
I've seen this
And
before actually. Yeah, it's
yeah,
really the crazy thing is people can be good at that. Like you can tell sometimes. Um, I specifically so I moderate Mario 1 leaderboards, right? And occasionally someone will just post, like another Top Runners PB as their own, the classic. And I've developed it where I can like tell whose gameplay they stole and then go into their like list of runs and find the exact run they stole because usually it's an older run, an obsoleted run, and be like,
yeah,
this is literally just this run. It's so people can figure it out, and it's probably easier the more like complex the game is because of how different it can be played, I guess.
Yeah, I really want to try it out myself. I keep encouraging him to do it because I'm like, man, I want to try this. Like, I think I would be pretty good. I was like a verifier for SA2 for years. Like, if you look at my stats, it's wild. I have like hundreds of hours of verification. I'm like, oh,
Oh my god.
I spent too much time doing this. But once upon a time, unemployed, so that helped. um, but yeah, the game is really cool. Um, would absolutely recommend it. It's like one of the best Sonic speedruns out there. Very
Yeah.
fun.
I want to see these game shows. There needs to be more of them. Like I always love when people do like little speedrun game show things.
Yeah, I think it would be super fun.
Yeah. So much content you can make out of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the
Just got
fun
to get a
part.
little creative with it, and some cool stuff can happen.
Hmm. So, is that kind of the whole SA2 in a nutshell?
Basically, in the middle, like when I was grinding for 21, there was some other games that I played too. Yeah, there's honestly a lot. Like other Sonic games, like I played Sonic Adventure 1 for a bit. I became like a decently top runner in that game. I think I had a top 20 time in every category except for the main one, which I was like 30th or something, Sonic Story.
Mm,
Um, so I was like I was a very well-rounded speedrunner of that game where I just kind of learned everything to a
mhm.
solid level.
How similar is it to SA2?
It like is in a lot of ways and isn't. It's one of those things where it would still benefit you to know one or the other when starting the other one. Just because a lot of the physics are the same, like the way that the game handles, like how long you jump, for example, is hover frames. So you have like 60 hover frames, um, and those can also be reactivated, right? So if you don't use them all, there's a thing called like a spin dash hover. So if you're just holding the A button while you like go off of a ledge, you'll reactivate those hover frames without having to actually jump. So you
Hmm.
can basically just float through the air and make essentially what should be jumps without having to at all. So you just won't lose any speed.
Hmm.
And those are things that are common across both games, as well as storage with the spin dash. Yeah, there's just a lot of little things, concepts you don't have to relearn necessarily about how the game works. But ultimately, the playstyles are like completely different. The same three characters from Hero Stories comes back, but they're all very different. Like Sonic has an instant spin dash that you're just spamming the whole time.
Hmm.
Tails is actually flying in this one, and it's insanely broken. And then Knuckles, his gameplay is basically the same, just his movement is a little bit more basic. Um, you also have the three radar slots pinging all at the same time, so
Mm.
figuring that out is crazy. The routing that people do for that, top level Knuckles story runs will blow your mind. They're actually really sick.
Oh, so yeah, SA2 is one at a time, but it does all three in the same one.
Uh yeah, so yeah, exactly. The radar in SA2, they reduced it to just one radar slot so that you can't just like run through the stage and find everything.
Hmm.
They kind of wanted you to do a little bit of backtracking, which is what some people don't like about it. But you do have the hint system which will like guide you towards it. But then in SA1, the levels are a little bit more closed, so you're going to have at times all three pinging.
Hmm.
And if you're a really good runner, you can tell what all three pieces are just from that knowledge. And so you can plan a route out just from seeing that. But the difference with SA1 as well is that they don't have really any sort of limits on what piece can be what. So you could have the pieces be like right next to each other. And you just have to be able to figure that out. So they're very different in that respect. Like it's a lot of routing on the fly, but also completely different at the same time.
Yeah, that's
It's
really
kind of cool.
cool. Yeah. It's cool that the same mechanic can be so different,
Hmm.
essentially.
Yeah, and Knuckles' movement's completely different too. Like it's just so wild. It's the same thing, but completely different.
Yeah, that stuff's
Um,
always fun.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy learning SA1 since there's 6 different play styles. Like it's kind of tough to get into, but um, a lot of the other ones are really short. Like Knuckles, Amy, Gamma, and Big are all under 10 minutes, or I think Knuckles is right at 10 minutes, but like Hero Story and Dark Story, for example, are like 30 to 40. So it's a pretty big difference in that, actually.
I didn't realize just how short everything was.
Mm.
Although I guess they're not supposed to be. People kind of, break the game a little bit. Kind of the
Especially if you're
point.
watching cutscenes, it ends up being like 30, 40 minutes each, pretty much.
Hmm. Wow.
And then aside from just SA1, I don't know, I mean, I can trace back to why we had this phase, but this was so weird. One of my good friends, Emerald, you know him,
Mm-hmm.
uh, he did a casual playthrough of Sonic Lost World back in the day.
Oh
And
no.
for some reason, some of us were like, oh, this kind of looks fun. Why don't we revive the speedrunning community?
Worst mistake ever. No.
Yeah, I don't know why we did that. That game is a lot. It's kind of fun as a speed run, but it's also a mess.
This is specifically the Wii U version, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, and oh boy. Yeah, we did that. There was like 4 or 5 of us. We ended up like making a Discord, and honestly, the game is like more popular now than ever. So I think we actually did a decent job of reviving the speedrun community, and there were some new skips found, and we shook up the top 10 quite a lot. Because at that point, all the runs were like 5+ years old because they were all from when the game came out. So we finally made some activity on the board, which is kind of cool in hindsight. But I messed around with that game, got a. I was like, I don't think I actually got the record in the IO, but we found a new skip, and I got like really close to an IL world record that was like insanely good. So that was kind of cool. I don't know why I grinded it so much, but it was probably like a good 20 hours of my time playing that game was just this one IL.
Mm.
uh, and it was fun for the little bit. And then the only other experience I think at the time I had was Sonic Colors when Sonic Colors Ultimate got remade or released, I guess. Um, yeah, we were all grinding that for a little bit, but that game was a mess on launch. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing runs and I was having a really good time with it, but then the game kept crashing in like the same zone, Starlight Carnival. I don't know why it was always there, but you're like 30 minutes into a run and the game crashes and it's a level rush mode, so you can't just hop back into it. It's not just a little bit of time loss. Like the run is just reset all of a sudden. And so I was like, yeah, I'm done running that. I'm not dealing with it anymore. So, I mean, that was fun, but kind of dipped my toes a little bit into a few different Sonic games, but SA2 was always the main one.
Mm-hmm. So, does Lost World have anything unique to it in terms of the speed run?
Um, it's weird because Lost World it came out in the middle of like the boost era of Sonic, but it's its own gameplay entirely. Um, it has spin dash, but it's nothing really like an adventure game. But it has some cool stuff. Like there's some interesting out of bounds skips because it's kind of like Galaxy a little bit, where you're kind of tethered to the planet. There's a lot of skips that involve like using that weird gravity to your advantage and being able to get like out of bounds and then getting the right gravity and falling to where you need to be. Really odd. And one of the coolest techs, I will say, like, I kind of wish they would bring some of this back. Like, I'm kind of mad at Lost World for messing some of this stuff up because it had some cool ideas, like the parkouring. I think it just makes so much sense for Sonic being able to like run on walls. But the really cool thing for the speed run is infinite wall running. If you jump away from the wall and then jump immediately back into the wall, you can just refresh your wall run. So you can just do that forever. Like if there's an infinite wall, you could literally just go as long as you wanted. There's no limit on it. And there's like a few spots where you're just skipping entire platforming sections just by doing that. It's faster and honestly easier. So that's a really cool one. I think people if they had that would probably like the game more. It's honestly not even really hard either.
Mm-hmm. And then I know there's a 3DS game. I assume it's its own different thing.
I have a yeah, it is completely different. I do have a funny story about that game actually though. At SGDQ this year, we went to this one of our friends' house party, and I remember if you know Brandino,
Mm-hmm. I know where this is
uh,
going.
yeah, 3DS savant.
Mm-hmm.
The Brandino is the 3DS guy, and we were talking the whole week about. I was like, "You got to teach me a 3DS IO." Like, he's like, "I have all the games. Just tell me which one." I'm like, "You know what? I'll let you choose because you know way better than I will." And so we were at this house party, and I'm like, "We never got to do it because it was like the end of the week already." And he was like, "Well, why don't we just do it tonight?" And I'm like, "Okay." So we're sitting there just drunk. He's We're sitting in the dining room. I have my laptop out recording his 3DS capture card, and I'm learning Lost World 3DS. What stage was it? It was one of the Desert Ruin stages. Just learning a whole IL, sitting there, and there's just people behind me watching as this is progressing. And I ended up getting a pretty good time actually. I'm kind of curious where it stands, but let me see if I can find it. This one was pretty funny. I just thought learning an IL while drunk at a party is just the most speedrunner thing ever.
True. I don't know. I missed it. I think I was at the same one.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot going on.
Yeah, fair. I
Let's
was
see.
distracted. That was the night of the Mario World relay, like Mario World
Mm,
ROM hack relay. So I was trying to watch that.
I see. Yeah, okay, so I got a time that was about 8 seconds off the world record in like an hour of sitting there
What?
drunk. And
Beautiful.
it was great. Like I just learned some of the tech. There's like this weird tech where you basically have to like because in that game spin dash is pretty instant. So I think it's like left bumper, whatever it is. You hit that, and then you have to like jump at a very specific timing, and you could get like a massive, sort of like a spin dash jump, but it's a really precise timing. But you pretty much just get instant speed, just flying across, and so you have to like run over to an area and then spin dash jump across the gap. And then you also have to be in high enough for Sonic to grab onto the wall. So just getting the trick isn't enough. You have to do it basically pretty precisely. And once I got that, I'm like, oh god, I'm sweating now. The pressure's on. I actually hit the trick, and then I remember there was one moment of it where I'm supposed to like stomp onto the head, or no, homing attack an enemy, so you can land on a platform that's gonna bring you up, right? And I did not do that. I just jumped straight onto it, and I almost flew off, but I like saved it. And Brandino's like screaming. He's like, "Oh my god, you did that like the riskiest way possible." But it ended up working out, and then I got the IL. I was really proud of it. I was like, after we got back to the hotel, I like uploaded it instantly and submitted the time. It was pretty funny.
GDQ goes crazy.
It really does. I love GDQ.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of,
Yeah, we're literally both wearing GDQ merch, so
let's go.
gotta love that runner shirt stuff or whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, so you also brought up colors.
Hmm.
Does the remake differ from the original Wii release in the run?
It's mostly the same. They mostly just took the game and
Made it
it's
worse.
essentially like
Sorry.
running it on Dolphin. But yeah, they did kind of make it worse. Um, Unfortunately. So, I mean, it is a little bit better and worse in some ways. I think after the patches, the game's a lot more stable now. But one of the big things that they added to the run from the original was the tail save. So instead of dying, Tails would put you back with your boost and your wisps if you had them.
Hmm.
And you didn't need a checkpoint, basically, is the thing that they added, which I thought was cool. Um, and the funny thing about that, though, is that if you're in a state, like, say, one of those ones where you're, like, quick stepping side to side, uh, that's like a particular state where you don't have the same 3D physics. You just have, like, this solid speed, you're trapped into your lanes. But if you use a tail save, it'll break you out of that.
Hmm.
And so there's some times where they didn't put collision like they normally would in those areas because you wouldn't need to. You're already locked in. And so there's one where you can use a laser straight up and then just go straight to the goal ring from the start of the stage.
Oh,
Because of the tail save.
wonderful.
Yeah, you just boost straight to the goal ring. So honestly, the remake is kind of fun for that. Like, there's some funny little skips and a little bit easier to run, just because of the tail save. But 90% of it's the same.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I'm not too familiar with the colors run either. So, is there anything unique or cool with that game?
Yeah, a lot of it's honestly pretty like similar to the casual experience, where a lot of it's just kind of boosting and doing 2D platforming stuff. There's a couple skips where you go out of bounds. It's mostly just all the wisps, like the laser wisp or the hover wisp is one where like pretty much all the major skips also involve water of some form because if when you're in the water, they give you like infinite jumps. Because underwater there's like all these big areas you need to traverse in 2D. But some of the game's major skips are basically get to a water area in 3D. Because then you can just infinitely jump, go out of bounds, and everything. There's no kill planes out there because you're supposed to be in 2D anyway. Um, so yeah, like one of them is go to a high platform and then hover over the the wall, the invisible wall, and then you end up in a 3D area in the water. Another one is stomp boost onto a flipper, and you have just the right speed and go through like a little crack in the collision and just clip out. And then again, you're in the water and you hit the 3D trigger. You just go straight to the end. So it's a lot of that. Funny enough, it's pretty much just any stage that has water is extremely broken.
Wonderful. Water proving itself BS all the time. Anyway,
Yeah, definitely.
classic. So, sounds like that was kind of everything during that time period.
Hmm.
So, I guess what's the next time period?
So yeah, I would say with that there was okay, so we did the 21 grind. We did all the games during that. And funny enough, I think I want to say this was SGDQ 2023. I was really starting to
Hey,
think about
that's this one.
nice. Um, I was really starting to think about. Well, I guess we'll take it back a little bit farther too. So there was a bit of an inspiration here from Emerald. We mentioned him before. He made a video and did a stream where he tried to beat as many 3D Sonic games as he could in a 24-hour stream. And so I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder like how much you could actually do if you learned every game because he knew SA2, he knew some runs from Heroes, he knew Sonic Colors at the time, he knew Sonic Frontiers, so he had good experience in about half of them. You could say there's probably around 10 depending on your definition of like a mainline Sonic game. Um, and so I think he ended up getting through like 6 of them and he was like, "Yeah, that was pretty solid. It was better than I expected." And so I was sitting there and I was doing the math, and I was like, "Okay, if you were a world record level runner, you could definitely do this. The world records all add up to like 16, 18 hours maybe." But I was like, obviously, nobody's gonna be like that good of a runner at every single game. So I was like, okay, but what would it take? Like, what sort of ranks would you have to get to actually be able to do it? And the answer I was realizing was really you had to be like around top 20, top 30 at every game, which is reasonable at least. And so the more I thought about that, I started talking to people about it, and I was like, oh man, it wouldn't leave my head. I would think about it while I'm walking around work. I would think about it when I'm hanging out with friends. I would ask people to teach me ILs of some of the games that I didn't know because I wanted to try them out. Um, and yeah, I was like, okay, I'm doing this. This is my like next big project. And I've always wanted to learn these games anyway. But I was just stuck grinding Hero Story for years, so it was like
Hmm.
I couldn't really ever get into it. And I was like, you know what, this is a good excuse to do it. Since at the time I didn't get 21. And funny enough, literally I was like, okay, this is my last week to try to get the 21. And on the very last day of that, I got it.
Oh, nice.
So it ended up being a perfect time to like capstone it off. I was like, oh man, yes, perfect timing. Let's go. So yeah, that was in like I want to say February of this year. I tried out Sonic Unleashed because I never played that before. I ended up really liking it. I tried out '06 runs because that was one of the ones I was worried about. And then I learned some more Sonic Heroes, and I was like, you know what, dude? Like, I actually like all of these games. Why not just send it? So that's been pretty much this whole year for me. I think I learned Unleashed in March. I learned the rest of '06 in April. May was all Sonic Heroes. And then I did the rest of the games, except for Sonic Forces. I never learned Sonic Forces. To gear up for a challenge, the challenge run, where I would do a 24-hour stream this was August. So a couple months ago now. And I was able to do it. I actually got a 21-hour time on my first attempt, which was crazy. Like, I thought it was going to be, like, down to the wire because, I only spent, like, a month learning each game. So I didn't think I was going to be able to get so close to top-level times in each one. I think the combined ranks for each game is, like, top 20. Like, if you
Wow.
average them all out. Except for Forces, because I didn't learn that one. It's so short anyway.
Mm.
But yeah, like I was super impressed with myself being able to do that challenge because it was like honestly an insane undertaking, spending like a whole year learning all these games. Um, and also playing well. Like I got a pretty decent time on this Forces leaderboard without actually learning the speed run, and I was like 18, 20 hours deep by that point. So I don't know how that happened. I just got taken over by a demon or something.
Mm-hmm. So, for clarification, so this is every 3D Sonic, like any percent in 24 hours?
Yeah, basically. The only like caveat I'll say to that is some of them aren't technically any percent.
Mm.
Because like for example, SA2 has any percent where you'll do like a wrong warp to the credits, for example.
No.
And so I didn't want to do anything like that. I wanted to like beat it through legitimate means, obviously while doing like speedrun skips and
Any
stuff.
percent no wrong word.
Basically, yeah. And most of the games don't have that, so I didn't really have to say that caveat for most of them. But for like that and '06 as well, I think those are the two instances
Mm-hmm.
where they have some funky wrong warp stuff. Um, so yeah, I beat them all like legit. Even Sonic Colors, I did any percent instead of the level rush mode egg shuttle
Mm.
because I was like, no, I want to start from a new file and beat it. I want to like actually beat the game. And there's 10 different games that I put in the mainline Sonic 3D mainline Sonic games list.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
yeah, 10 games in 21 hours.
and what's the list specifically?
Yeah, so you have Sonic. Okay, so we'll start with the adventure era. You
Mm.
got Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, and Sonic '06 is what we classify as like the adventure era of games, where you're like playing as multiple different characters, different playstyles, stuff like that. And then moving on, you have the modern era or boost era, whatever you want to call it. So Unleashed, Colors, Generations, Forces, and Frontiers, and then Lost World's kind of in there. It's not really a boost game, but it's also in there.
Okay.
So those are the 10 games. There's a couple that are questionable. Like Shadow the Hedgehog should probably be included now, especially with the new game that just came out. Um, 3D Blast people have given me have put a
Mm.
lot of comments about, but like it's not even a 3D game. Let's be so real. It's like an
But it's
isometric
3D
top-down
Blast.
game.
It's in the
I
title.
know it's 3D.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm like I don't know about that one. And then the storybook games, so like Secret Rings and Black Knight, but I don't think those are any more mainline than like Sonic Riders, for example.
Hmm.
That's just my opinion. I think Shadow will be the one that I'll have to add if I do it again, especially with the new game that just came out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and this is all like just the standard any percent. The original releases, like I know Unleashed had a bunch of different releases, but it would have been like the PS3 one, I guess.
yeah. I did.
Because the Wii had like it's a weird port that was different, kind of. I don't know.
Yeah,
Unleashed is weird.
the Wii version is the same game, but also like completely different at the same time.
Hmm.
It's very odd. So yeah, I pretty much just chose like the whatever seems to be like the definitive version of the game. So like for SA2, I chose like the PC one. Same with SADX. I pretty much did them all on PC. Some of them I did emulator. I guess the way for me to frame it is pretty much I took all of the SRC rules and just used those basically, like
Mhm.
whatever was allowed. Um, so like Heroes emulator's good, O6 emulator's good. As long as the boards were like this is a legitimate way to play the game, then I was like, okay, I'm not gonna fight that.
The speed police are
um,
coming.
yeah, exactly. They're
So
coming for
like
me talking
for
about
colors, it
emulators.
was Ultimate. Like so, if
Yeah,
there's a remake and it made more sense. Use the remake.
yeah, exactly. That was also kind of like a weird thing of like, so that's why I was like a good way to say it is just if SRC if the mods think it's okay, then they know better than me, so
I
I'm
mean,
not gonna
fair.
fight it.
I mean, yeah, it's a big undertaking for sure. So,
Yeah. Um,
semantics, who really cares, right?
yeah, that's I was like as long as I'm playing the game, I don't think people are gonna be too mad about it, so whatever. Feels right to me, so I'm fine with it. And then after I did the actual challenge itself, I basically went no contact with the world and just worked on editing a let's see, how long is this video? It is an hour and 27 minutes long.
Nice.
uh for frame of reference, the longest video I've ever edited before it was about 15 minutes.
Oh
um
my god.
so it was a bit of a jump, but I chronicled my whole journey all the way back to March when I was streaming Learning Unleashed and all the games. Um, I started with that, took about maybe 20, 30 minutes of the video to just go over that and say, hey, like, this is my learning process. These are the things to look out for in the big run, stuff like that. And then went into the actual run itself and showed the ups and downs, the mistakes I made because I was dead tired at like 3 a.m. There's seriously some really funny clips in there of me just like watching Sonic fall to his doom, and I'm doing nothing to save him because I'm just so tired.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
So check out that video if you want to see me go insane for 24
hmm
hours.
always a good time to watch that. So, I guess to kind of go into the journey, obviously you don't have to quote the YouTube video, but are there some like highlights from the learning process or specific game stuff that are interesting?
Let me think. Yeah,
Com-
one of the
Complex
things,
question, I know. A lot to think
yeah,
about.
I'll think about the games and sort of like the order I learned them. So like Unleashed, wow, I was shocked. Like one of the games I had never played before because it's honestly a little hard to get. It's pretty much locked to Xbox, but I do have a Series S, and they did like an FPS boost sort of thing, so you could play it at 60 frames now. Um, if you played on that version, and like it's one of the most gorgeous looking Sonic games, and that just made it way better. And that game blew me away. Like the speedrun of it is actually so fun. It's one of the games I think that makes you feel the best as you're going fast. Uh, it's like the game that makes you feel like Sonic, as they always say. Um, like truly, that game is incredible, and I hated the Werehog casually. Everybody ranks Unleashed so low because of that, and I don't blame them because I hated it. But as a speedrun, it's actually so fun. Like it's some of the best platforming in Sonic once you actually start to get the hang of it. And you can skip most of the fights in the speedrun anyway, which is the biggest pace breaker, really. Um, so I think it actually made it really fun. But there's some stuff that makes that speedrun like probably the hardest one on this list. Um, like there's M speed, which is basically okay. So I just learned this recently. I think people know this more. Forgive me if I use this wrong because I just heard about this recently. But ESS, where you're like barely holding the stick, like forward or whatever direction. It's basically just like a tiny, tiny bit. You're not holding it full down. But if you do that in this game, it's like this weird position the game's not ready to handle. So essentially, what happens is instead of applying air drag and slowing you down when you're in the air, it just starts speeding you up.
Sure.
And so you can already boost Yeah, I don't know what kind of glitch it is, but it just applies air drag in the opposite direction. So if you boost and hold that specific angle like on the stick, you just start flying. And if you hit the right point, it's really uncommon for this to happen, but you can literally just break the game to the point where like I've never had it happen to me, but I'm pretty sure you can't even like open the menu. Like the game is just broken. Um and they literally call it break glitch.
Hmm.
But usually that doesn't happen. It's pretty rare, but you can go to the point of literally breaking the game going so fast. And it is huge, obviously, to just like have a glitch that allows you to just continuously gain speed past the cap of what you're supposed to. And so people will use this everywhere, just in normal movement, but they'll also use it in like out of bounds glitches, just skipping through the entire map. Um, so that was really hard to learn because not only do you have to hold this very specific direction, sometimes you will have to like turn in the middle of that while also holding that right point on the stick. And if you mess it up, you're just gonna die and lose a lot of time. So for me, that was something I avoided a little bit at first because it was so risky. I really only went for a couple of them that were like really consistent and easy to set up. Um, and then there was Infinite EXP glitch, which is terrifying. You have it about like 30 minutes or so into the run, I think. It might be a little bit more. But basically, what happens for this is in this game, you have like uh you have actual like combat levels and strength levels, which is really big for the werehog to actually be able to like take down enemies quickly. But you're obviously not going to go grind XP for it or anything in a speed run. But they found out that if you grab the goal ring and end up doing some sort of action to interrupt it, originally this was just dying. You get put in like this like goal state where the goal ring is gone. It wants you in the results menu, but you're not. You're still moving around and stuff. And the only way to actually start it is by landing on the ground again. So if you jump and land, that'll count, or you fall and land, it'll put you into that goal ring state. But they found out if you jump with like an enemy doing another action, it'll start the result screen, but you can still move around and stuff. So basically, it's kind of like the only game I can think of that has this is if you remember when Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl came out, they had like the layered menus. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I'm not too
Um,
familiar with Pokemon games.
yeah, it was crazy when it came out. That game was so broken, but essentially what you can do is you can rinse and repeat that same process where you put the XP into what you want, and then you go grab an enemy and just jump, do it again. And at some point, you will have like 10 menus layered on top of each other. So not only do you have to do this really weird movement, make sure you don't get hit, make sure you don't hit the wrong input, you also have to navigate like 10 different menus stacked on top of each other and make sure you're not hitting the wrong option. So it was crazy to wrap my mind around. I mean, I couldn't even get the interrupting it part consistently at first. I think me and M learned it at the same time, and we both spent like an hour and a half trying to get it once and never got it. um, yeah, it's a really tough trick. So that was like the biggest one when I was setting up in the challenge because if you fail it, and you lose your experience that you've been accruing through the game, you're gonna be like 3 levels of strength down, and it just loses like an indeterminate amount of time. Like you actually can't even know, but it's probably something like 10 minutes along that line. So
Jesus.
you get one shot at it. It's kind of terrifying, and I like locked in for the run itself, and I actually got it, which was awesome.
Hmm.
But I spent a ridiculous amount of time learning that one. It was kind of stupid.
Games be crazy.
Yeah, Unleashed is unreal. One of the craziest speedruns I've ever seen or done.
Yeah, that's very unique too. Like you think of the 3D Sonic games being broken, especially in the speedrun sense, but goddamn, it's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
to think
crazy.
about.
Even without doing the crazy glitches for that game, it's still like crazy hard movement wise. Like you just go so fast in that game. You have to be really precise in just about every stage to like actually go fast. It's unreal. It is a rush playing that game for sure.
Sonic Rush. Anyway,
Yep.
so what was the next learning time?
After that, I did Heroes, which bane of my existence,
Mm-hmm. Fair.
because you have to play the 4 different teams and then the end. It is the longest game in the challenge
Oh,
by
you
far.
have to like do everything?
Yeah, you have to do everything.
Huh.
Um, yeah, you have to do all 4 teams, and then you get like the last story, which is just basically a boss fight. Yeah, oh man, it is like I think for me, my PB is around 4.5 hours.
Oh my god.
So compared to the average Sonic game, it's really long. Like the next longest one is Sonic 06, and it's about half as long.
Hmm. It's weird because
So,
like the SA games, right? You just do Sonic story, right? You feel like it's the same thing as like doing all the stories.
mhm.
What
Yeah,
makes it not that, I guess? I'm a little confused.
um, well, yeah. So that was my thing for it. I wanted to do all of the stories in each game, um,
Mm.
because they have the last story. Like, it was weird. I mean, I don't know. It didn't really feel like beating the game if I just got to like the first credits, you know. Um, but also it's pain.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been probably nicer to do it that way, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was better, but I kind of wish I didn't because Heroes in particular like kind of killed me. Like I'm not even a fan of the game, so spending like 4 to 5 hours on it each run, it was just tough. Yeah, there's some pretty big skips. One like really big decision that I made is instead of playing on like emulator or GameCube, put on the PC version. I don't even know if you know, like, if anybody really knows that that exists.
Hmm.
Um, it came out like 6 months after the regular game or something, and so they patched some of the big skips that they have in that game, but they also like broke things that are way easier to accidentally do.
Hmm.
So there's like one thing called an ultra glide where if you're like running on a loop or like some sort of uphill, you can literally just glide as a power character and you will just go flying so fast. It's ridiculous. Um, like there's parts like there's like a loop with a fixed camera that like pans back so you can see the whole loop and you'll just watch the characters just fly off the screen till you can't even see them anymore.
Hmm.
Like it's that fast. So I don't know what they did with that, but it's a lot easier than the main glitches that they have in the console version of the game. And you can do it in more places. So I was like, you know what? This is going to be way more consistent for my challenge. Let me do that. Um, and then the other big thing is the loads. Oh my god, the console version takes like 15 seconds to load every stage. And when you have 21 stages for all 4 teams, that adds up.
Hmm.
And the PC version is like instant loads. Like you can't even really read everything that's on the page because of how fast it is. I think I timed it out. On average, I was saving about 12 to 15 minutes per all stories run just from loads.
Hmm.
So trying to beat them all in 24 hours, I was like, that's a no-brainer. Like that's actually just so much. I would have to be so much better at the console version to justify playing on that version. Um, so I just decided to pull the trigger there. But it was still painful just sitting in that game for so long. Like it was a whole like almost sixth of the challenge. Like no, more than that, almost a quarter. Um, yeah, it's tough, but it's a fun game. It's definitely very button pressy. I could see myself really liking the game, but I think because of the circumstances, I definitely hated it.
Hmm.
One day I need to go back and like be like, oh yeah, this is a fun game. I don't just have to grind this out of obligation, you know. Um, and the next game, honestly, I was really surprised that I liked it so much. Sonic 06.
Hmm.
Actually, a fun speedrun. I always heard that, and I'm like, no, I think you're coping. This game is terrible. Everybody knows it's terrible. Like, there's no way it's that fun. But I tried it out, and the Sonic part is really, really fun. It's super scuffed, like, obviously, because it's Sonic 06. But because it's so broken, it actually makes a lot of the speed tech and the skips, like there's so many of them everywhere. Pretty much every stage has something cool going on with it. or just some funny clip out you can do that's way too easy. Like one of the stages that comes to mind is there's literally you can just hold the X button, which is like the spin kick or the slide button, and you just let it go when you're on a wall, like going through a loop, and you'll just clip out of it.
Hmm. Great.
Like there's a lot of random stuff like that. It's like what were they doing? And then so I think going into actually learning the challenge, I already knew Sonic's story and Shadow because I had messed around with them a little bit. Silver story is crazy. Like just thinking about it, it makes sense, right? Because if you think of a character with psychic abilities and Sonic 06 and put them together, you know it's gonna make for the craziest run that like you'll probably see. um, there's so many goofy tricks. Like one thing, for example, it's always X. Now that I'm thinking about it, if you literally just hold X, which is his button for like his slap ability, stuff like that, you will literally just bounce on water instead of like going into it and dying.
Hmm.
So there's this one stage that's like a baby strat. You can do other stuff, but literally I just jump into the water and bounce across the whole stage because it's supposed to be like the kill plane beneath you, but you just literally just go across the whole stage like that.
Good old stone skip.
Yeah.
So
Um.
I think I misunderstood part of this. You did like all stories in most
Mhm.
games? Okay.
Yeah.
So like SA 1 and 2 were all stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um.
I thought it was just like the Sonic story, just like one credit roll. Okay.
Yeah, and they even have a category for this on the multi Sonic board, where it's Adventure Era All Stories. I think
Hmm.
the record is like just over. I think it's like 11 hours or something.
And that
Um.
is SA1, 2, Heroes, and 6. Oh,
Yeah.
6. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
All
it.
the stories in each one of those games.
I'm caught.
The longest of which being Heroes. It's basically
Yes.
half of the thing.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot about '06, as most people on the internet have, so. But bad games usually make good speedruns, from what I've heard, so. Sounds
Yeah.
like this hit the mark pretty well.
Yeah. It's definitely the case there. It's one of the games, funny enough, that I probably want to go back to after having done this challenge. Some of the games like Lost World or Colors, I think I'm probably good on now. Like they were fun, but I've had my time with them, But like '06 is surprisingly fun. Like actually, I'd love to grind for a decent time in it. Especially Sonic Story.
Mhm. And then the non-adventure game era games don't really have stories. You just beat game, see credit, next game.
Yeah, it's basically just any percent.
Got it. Okay. So what was the first game you had to learn in that? The next era, I guess.
Okay, so at this point, I already knew. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't even ever really talk about Frontiers, but
Hmm.
I played Frontiers when that came out as well. Took a break from SA2 for a bit. So at this point, I knew Sadix, SA1, SA2, Heroes '06, Unleashed. That's like the first 5 games in the line of 3D games, and then Frontiers. And then I also talked about Colors and Lost World a little bit. So at this point, there was pretty much just Generations and Forces.
Hmm.
So at this point, I was learning Generations, and I was taking special note because we just had Sonic X Shadow Generations come out literally this week as we're talking, um, and so I was like, okay, I actually have to put some effort into this one because you never know, I might end up running that in the future too with the remake. Um,
Because it had
and
been announced
so
by then.
yeah, at
Yeah.
this point, we already knew what it was. I was like, oh man, like this is a good timing for this challenge, I guess. um, that game's pretty cool, honestly. It's probably some of my favorite 2D Sonic gameplay just because his spin dash is so broken.
It's so fast.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, there's no way you can know what's coming unless you've actually played the game enough to like know the layouts. Basically, have to be a speedrunner to properly utilize it. But if you just spin dash and jump, you'll just watch him fly, and that feels good. But there's some out of bounds skips in that one. It's pretty limited. Most of it is honestly just boost platforming and some really tight spin dash jumps as classic Sonic. Um, Honestly, it was a really fun game, but I think I really only spent like a weekend on it. Because I was starting to get down to the wire for when I wanted to do the challenge. So I did like a 12-hour challenge and I think one more stream, and that was kind of it for Generations, honestly. I didn't spend too long on it, but I was able to get like a top 50 time pretty quick. So I was like, I feel pretty confident with it. Like, why not just move on from this? Um, yeah, it was a fun game though. Like, Generations is cool. I might give it a try with the remaster, but it kind of seems like they broke it a little bit more in classic Sonic remaster fashion, like on Color's Ult for is a good example of this, where they remake it, but they also kind of broke it at the same time.
No. Well, they seem to be good at that. So I
Yeah,
don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I've just seen some clips on Twitter, so maybe I gotta actually play it myself.
Hmm. And then
And then,
the last was
yeah,
Forces, but you didn't really mess with that.
yeah. So when I first casually played Forces, I beat the game in like 2.5 hours, and I was watching cutscenes.
Hmm.
So I was like, you know what? I've done the math here, and my times are good enough. I think it would be really funny for the video if I literally just didn't learn Forces. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just not do it. And I ended up getting like a pretty decent time, funny enough. Um, but the game is so short, I thought that would be a good joke in and of itself that like I literally didn't need to speedrun it for this. And yeah, I still get so many comments on the video about it.
And then,
So maybe I'll have to learn it eventually.
yeah, well, it
We'll
is
see.
Forces, but
It is Forces.
yeah. So did you just essentially do kind of like just a glitchless fast casual play, or
Basically,
wow?
I did look into the speedrun a little bit, but I didn't end up doing anything from it. Like I knew of skips, but I didn't want to try them like first try that day. And another thing they do is they'll switch the wispins that they have, the little weapon that the avatar uses. Um, so they switch that, and it's really fast and really good for taking out bosses. But I tried it out one time just for fun. Like this is a while ago. I just wanted to see how it felt because I saw people in the speedrun using it, and it was kind of hard to figure out how to use it. So I kind of knew I was like, let me just stick to what I know and just use the basic one. That way I'm not like changing stuff up and just keep it comfortable because I'd beaten the game maybe twice before doing it. Um, so it's like, let me just stick to exactly what I know and that'll be fine. Like the game's short enough anyway, even if I mess up a lot, like it's not going to be the end of the world.
Got it. And then yeah, we completely skipped over Frontiers. So
Yeah. I forgot to mention that like when I was talking about like my stuff before this challenge. But when Frontiers came out, I was grinding it like crazy. I think I put like 500 hours into the game in the span of like 6 months. Um, yeah, it was a bit of my life for a while. I think I made like 8 different YouTube videos on the game too, as people were finding new tech. Yeah, it's a really cool run. Um, Very different for Sonic. If you haven't played it, there's like these islands that you have to go and clear, and then you have a boss fight where you become Super Sonic and fight them at the end of every island. Very 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 cool. Uh, there's some cool skips in it as well. Like the first two major islands, you can actually just skip straight to the boss arena
hmm.
through using some glitches, and then funny enough, they just left in the trigger that they used to spawn the boss. So if you can find where they drop you, you can just spawn the boss at any time. And beating the
Hmm.
boss allows you to move on from the island, even if you didn't do anything else. So, uh, I think the game was rushed a little bit because you can tell in the third and fifth island they took steps to stop you from doing that. But I don't think they were able to go back and like check all the bugs out in the first couple islands, which kind of plays to our favor because it makes the run flow a lot nicer, I would say, because you get out of the first two islands in like the first 20 minutes,
Hmm.
and then the rest of the ones you have to play more as intended, I guess, where you're doing like resource gathering and stuff like that, so that you can progress to the boss fight. There's a lot of routing, very different for a Sonic game.
You know, it's open world, which is kind of different-ish to anything else they've done.
Yeah, I mean, even the new game is like has a little bit of hub world, but it's nothing like Sonic Frontiers. Um, yeah, it's definitely very interesting. It's a super fun game. Funny enough, though, I when I was grinding the game, I wasn't playing any percent. I was doing the 100% category, which I still technically have record of the legacy 100% run.
Hmm.
Um, because at some point they, with all the new updates, they changed the definition of 100%. Um, but nobody really runs it because it's like double in length of the old version.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, people were kind of over that.
Hmm.
Yeah, Frontiers was fun. A lot of the same movement and tech and stuff like that ended up applying. So yeah, I, even though I hadn't played any percent much, I still already knew how to do movement in the game really well. And because I did 100%, I kind of just had to take that and just do less, you know. So even though I was a little like I wasn't perfectly there with the route of it. I would pretty much like already had a good idea of what to do. So I was like, I'm not even gonna bother about learning it. I'll just do like 1 or 2 D-Rust runs, and that'll probably be good enough for the challenge.
Got it. And then it happened.
Yeah, I was able to actually pull it off. In hindsight, I wish I did Frontiers a little bit more because it was literally the last game of the challenge, and at that point, I'm like dead tired, you know. So trying to remember anything was a struggle at that point.
But it worked out with hours to spare.
Yeah, that was the thing. When I was sitting there, I was like, "Oh man, like I'm blowing this out of the water," which kind of took the pressure off. Like, I think if it was really tight, I would have been struggling a lot with Frontiers, but because I was like, no matter what I mess up, I'm still finishing this, you know, as long as like game doesn't crash or anything like that. It's like crossing my fingers. I'm like, this will be fine. We actually did it.
Hmm. And then never playing video games again. No.
Yeah, no, I had to take
Needed a
like a month
break.
off. Yeah, literally. I actually just didn't play games for like a month because I spent like almost 6 months straight just grinding speedruns. I was like, oh man, I need a break. And so I was just stuck in DaVinci Resolve editing my video, um, which also is doing pretty well. I gotta say, real quick, it is quickly becoming my most viewed video. It's been out for like 3 weeks now, and I think we're like 4K away, or no, 6K away from being my most viewed video ever, which is insane.
Wow.
Definitely blowing me out of the water with the support for that one. So
Especially
it's a
with it
cool
being
video.
so long, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think people love their long video essay content. You know.
Oh, boy, do they. I know I do. So I guess we can dive into more of the YouTube side of things. So
Mhm.
I know that's mainly what you're known for, is specifically the YouTube content side of things.
Yeah, it is. It has definitely become my main thing at this point. Where before it was like top level speedrunner. Also, kind of did some YouTube stuff, but I'm kind of getting there. Yeah, honestly, a lot of it really came from. I guess I could go back from to the start, but a big thing is I would go and watch the summoning salt video of SA2 so often.
Really?
I would just go and watch it and watch it and watch it, and it would get me so hyped up to go and grind the game, you know. Uh, and I was like, man, like, why don't we have more of this? Why aren't people doing this? And I had friends, you know, they're like, "Oh, dude, why isn't Sonic speedrunning bigger? Like, that's kind of the whole point of Sonic, you know, like just go fast. Like, why is this not big?" And I was like, you know, like we should definitely like tell people how cool this is. And so I like sort of was thinking about it, and I was already kind of making content that was more like challenge stuff and like really trying to find my footing of what I liked on YouTube. Um, and I was like, you know what? Why don't I make something like similar to Summoning Salt? And so my first video was focusing on one stage. I chose Green Forest because the innovation around that stage was around some of the coolest points in the game's history. And so I basically focused on, okay, the first world record, what did they do in Green Forest? And then kind of going forward and how it drove the game forward. As the hardest stage in SA2 was the whole hook of the video. Um, and it popped off. Like, I think my best video at that point was like 1,000 views. And I think within the month it got up to like 50K or something. And I was
Hmm.
like, whoa, people like this. And so I was like, I could do like Summoning Salt-esque bite-sized content of Sonic speedruns. I think people would like that. And I kind of took it from there. And I've had other ones that have done well. Like I did Sonic Adventure 1 when they discovered a new skip. I covered that and like what it meant and what it would continue to mean for that game. And then Sonic Frontiers came out, and I
Milk,
grinded like
milk,
no
milk.
other.
Yeah.
Because that game had discoveries like every week. I think literally, I mean, let me look how many I made. So I dropped a video within a week of the game releasing, and then I did one on Pinball Skip, I did one on all the chase skips, I did one for the tech called Hit and Run, and then I did a video for the sub-hour grind. So I did 5 in the span of like 2 months. Heavily edited, fully scripted videos. Well, I was still learning editing as well, is the crazy part.
Hmm.
And then I ended up doing 3 more after that. One of them was kind of a random one. It's 10 minutes of useless information about Sonic Frontiers, which is still a banger to this day, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
No, a
And then
lot
I
of
made
people
one
make that
about
shit. It's always funny.
yeah, and the game has so much going for it. Like it was actually really cool. I was able to show off a lot of like random things that I found running 100% or clips that I had seen. Um, And then after that, I pretty much just did videos on the updates of the games and saying like, "Oh, is this broken? Like, how?" And then on the last update, they added some more playable characters, which is crazy that they did that. So I made a video of how speedrunners broke the different playable characters, basically. And that took my channel. I think I was like 2,000 subs at the time to basically like 10K
Hmm.
within the next year.
Damn.
Um, so yeah, Frontiers definitely exploded my channel. Um, and after that, I was kind of like, I don't really like the way that I've been pushing out content so consistently. Like it's good that I'm pushing it out consistently, but I feel like I never really get to sit back and like make something that I think is really cool and like a guaranteed banger, you know? um, so that brings us to I made one video on SA2 because we talked about this earlier, where Katie got the 20. Best run in the history of Sonic speedrunning, just straight up, I'll say it. Um, and they're catching up to it now, but hey, 2 years ago, that run was monumental. The fact that it's still record says a lot. Um, and so I made a video on that, the greatest Sonic speedrun of all time, and that's done really well. And then I took a 8-month break to make this challenge video. And I've had 2 1 of 10s back to back, which is awesome. So I think I'm definitely in my era of like, especially with the long form content, sitting back and just like making a banger every single video. Even if it takes me a year to do so, I think it's worth it.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah, and then
I do like the quality over quantity, right? So.
yeah, I think that's what I started at because when I made that Green Forest video originally, it took me like 6 months to make, mostly because I didn't know how to edit. Script writing was new to me.
Yeah,
um,
that's the hard part of getting into it. Like I've considered it, but I cannot script write. And then editing, I kind of
yeah.
understand, especially since I took a little bit of a class in college.
Mhm.
But I mean, it is hard, right? I mean, and all the things I've edited have been not the traditional like storytelling format things. It was just like, here's a cool comparison of runs. I'm not
Mhm.
gonna talk. It's just a visual. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get into.
Definitely. Yeah, it took so long, and now that I've been doing it for like 3 years now, I'm starting to feel really confident now and really trying to push to like keep improving and do like some of the crazy edits that you'll see, people actually go and commission people for. The fact that I'm like starting to get to that point, I'm like, oh, this is cool. It's nice that I can just do that on my own. Uh, but I still will commission some videos because I have friends that are just better editors than I will ever be. um, and the other thing that I do commission a lot, I talked a lot about my long form videos, but my short form content, honestly, at this point, I think I am more known for, which is insane to say.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of back and forth. The interesting thing about YouTube is they push short form and long form as completely separate entities. Like it may as well be different channels, in my view. Because you'll see people with 1 million subscribers from short form, and their long form videos will get a couple hundred views.
Hmm.
It is really interesting how YouTube looks at it, which is why I'm proud to say that I have solid success in both sides, because I think it's really hard to do. So one of my most successful shorts on YouTube is about to hit 2 million views, which is kind of unreal to me. Um,
Okay,
it has,
when you say short form, do you mean like the shorts, like the vertical type
yeah,
thing?
like
Okay,
YouTube Shorts. Yeah.
got it.
It is kind of a confusing name because you do call them short form content, but
Yeah, when I think
yeah,
of
I've
short form content, I think of, like 5 minute
TikTok
or
or
well,
that too.
I
Yeah.
think of like the 8 minute video, just to,
Mm,
maybe hit the ad revenue, like just a short
yeah.
video. Like as long I consider it long form, short form, and then shorts are the like less than a minute vertical TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah. And now they're blurring the lines even further because TikToks can be like 10 minutes, and now they're making it so YouTube Shorts can be like 3 minutes long too. So it's like,
Oh my god.
I don't even know. It's
Please.
hard to keep up. I'm just keeping mine under a minute. I'm fine with that.
Okay. So yeah, this is specifically YouTube Shorts,
YouTube
or is it
Shorts
also on
and
like TikTok?
TikToks.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
Yeah, I post them on both, but it's focused for YouTube because
Hmm.
that's really where I'm the most successful already.
Yeah.
So yeah, and part of the reason why I started making short form content was because there was a lot of ideas that I had that I'm like, I'm not making a full video about that. I'm not getting 8 minutes out of that. And then I also sort of had the idea of like, well, let me take my time and make some really good long form content. So while I'm doing that, I can just take an afternoon, come up with an idea, a script, and get all the footage for a 1 minute long short. Really only takes a couple hours to get all that together, toss it over to an editor, boom, done. Um, and so I've had a lot of success with this. I think at this point I've made maybe about 20 to 30 shorts. And like I mentioned, one of the most popular ones is 2 million, about to hit 2 million. I have a few at 1 million as well. Um, I think arguably it's probably my biggest point of growth at this point. Obviously, the views mean less than a long form view, but with just the sheer number of them, I think it's still what people will probably know me the most for at this point.
Got it. Well, YouTube, it is an interesting thing.
Yeah, I do really like YouTube. The reason why I think I do YouTube more than streaming these days is because the nice part about YouTube, when you put it down, it's still working. People are
Yeah.
still watching your content. You're still growing, even if you don't upload for a year. I mean, shoot,
Hmm.
I didn't upload for 8 months between that Sonic Adventure 2 video and the challenge video, but my content was still growing.
Hmm.
I probably got like 100,000 views on my long form content over that time, spread out on all my videos. Like, where Twitch, you gotta be live all the time, or even YouTube
Hmm.
streaming.
And let's
Every
call
minute
it
you're
what it
not live.
is. Twitch doesn't make you money like YouTube does.
That's
let's
true.
let's just call it what it is.
Yeah. So YouTube is definitely working out well for me. I think it's going to be my main thing for quite a while.
Hmm.
I definitely want to get the check and the play button. I think that's my
Ah,
biggest goal.
the 100K goal.
Yeah. And we're coming up on 20K here now. So
Ooh.
I've been able to every year double my subscriber count. I I'm wondering at what point that's going to hang up, because
Hmm.
I think at some point it's just too much of an ask. Um, but coming into this year, I was just about to hit 10K. I think I hit 10K in January. And then right now I'm at like 18,000. So realistically,
Damn.
especially with the new game coming out, and I'm going to drop content for that, 20K is
Hmm.
pretty real.
Yeah.
Um,
No, you'll definitely hit that by the end of the year.
I think I'm going to get away with it this time again.
You
Another
could probably
year
squeeze
of
out
doubling.
25 even, right?
Maybe. It really depends on how well the videos do.
Hmm.
I think today I'm gonna work on it, but it's hard because there's only like so much text so far. So I'm like, I don't even know
Yeah.
what to make a video on.
Well, speaking of the new game, talk about the
Mm,
new game.
yeah. So the new game, it's technically they sort of advertised it as a remaster of the original Sonic generations, but they had added a whole other side game, sort of like a Bowser's Fury
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Yep.
for Shadow. Funny enough, though, it's probably one of the best Sonic games ever made.
Okay.
And it was just packaged as a side remaster thing, kind of crazy. The
Hmm.
game is super well made, super polished. Honestly, very few glitches we've found. There's a few skips in the middle of the stages. Um, there's a couple crazy ones, but none that can really be done in any percent. Um, but the game does have some really cool tech, so it's a pretty standard boost game. Obviously, it's Shadow. Um, but there is some cool stuff. The biggest thing that makes this game amazing, we were kind of talking about this a little bit before. If they patched it, game would kind of suck as a speedrun.
Mm.
But what it is essentially, he has this attack called the Chaos Spear. It's like his ranged attack. He can throw it out, hit targets, activate them, or stun enemies. And the funny thing about it is that whenever you use it, it locks your forward momentum or whatever momentum you're going or direction you're going in, right? So basically, what you can do is you can boost and then immediately start spamming the spear, and you will not slow down at all.
Hmm.
So if you time it just right, when your boost is giving you like you're at max speed, right? You can just basically fly across entire levels, basically as far as you can go without falling to your death, essentially. And these levels are
Hmm.
big and wide open areas, so you can really just use this movement tech over any gap just to go a little bit faster. You can use it for some major skips. There's so like it makes the game incredibly fast and super flashy.
Hmm.
Watching the best runners is crazy, and it's only been out for a week. It's really cool tech.
Wow. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see how long that lasts, but it sounds cool.
yeah. The worst part about it, I would say so far, is because of how input intensive the game is. My hands are already kind of dead, and it's been out since like Monday.
Mm.
So I'm definitely, like I said, gonna have to be very careful. Ice my wrists, take some break days. Yeah, I'm gonna have to be really careful about it because otherwise I'm gonna end up with some real bad carpal tunnel.
Yeah, well, I've heard nothing but really good reviews about it so far.
It's so fun. Yeah, I am probably gonna do more isling of it tonight, just a little bit though, so I don't mess with my hands. Because after
Mhm.
yesterday's stream, they're dead.
Yeah.
um,
So, how long's like the run of this side mode?
yeah. So I would say like a good first run through of the game is like probably around 2 hours. I think my first time was like an hour 50, and right now the record is right about an hour 20.
Wow.
Um, I think my PB is like an hour 30 because I haven't really done too many runs yet. Um, but yeah, they're really fun. I'm kind of surprised at how low the time's gotten already. I could see sub hour within the next month or two, maybe. It's kind of hard to
Mm.
tell because it's one of those games where, well, I mean, it's one of those things where there's just so much content that it would almost be hard seeing it going sub hour, but at the same time, at the rate that people are improving, I wouldn't be surprised. It's really hard to tell. It kind of depends on us finding some major skips or something like that, which I'm sure exist. We just don't know the game well enough yet.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds like this is like the only big thing about it, and then nothing
Yeah,
else is known quite yet.
yeah. The thing that makes stuff really broken is there's this ability called Doomwing, but you don't get it until the last zone of the game. It's basically the supersonic mode for Shadow.
Hmm.
But you can just fly. You get 50 rings. You activate it, pretty much like Super, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then you can just fly. As long as you have rings and boost, you can fly. And that is allowed for some crazy skips in the ILs, but you only have it for the last two stages of any percent. And so we found skips with it in those two stages, But that's the only thing I can think that would be really broken. Like the only piece of content I've released so far about the game was with the Doomwing, where basically they go out of bounds and then they fly and they escape like. So you go to in the middle of a lot of the stages, you'll go into like this dimension that's it looks like Radical Highway that the villain puts you in, and you can actually just break out of it. It's not even like any special different area. It's literally just if you're in this area, the stage looks like this, and then when you fall to go back to the other one, it turns back into Rail Canyon, for example.
Hmm.
um, so they found a skip like that where you can actually just get out of it and go to the end of the stage. But that's only possible with stuff like Doomwing. So who knows? Maybe eventually, if we find something super broken, we might be able to do skips like that. But for now, the game's pretty polished, honestly. The fact that we really only have like one piece of real crazy movement tech, and the rest of the time save just comes from routing and finding the best routes and stages and the best way to go about the hub world, like that's pretty impressive for a new game, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And does the regular generations game differ from its original release?
It's actually so funny because like nobody's playing it.
That's
I
fair.
haven't touched it because
Hmm.
there's just a new game right there, you know. Um, but yeah, I don't really have a solid answer for that yet because I haven't played it myself and I haven't heard much about it. All I've seen is some clips on Twitter that like have some crazy glitches going on. Like one of them was classic Sonic clearly went out of the 2D plane. I don't know how this happened, but they like rubber banded classic Sonic hit an enemy and then shot out like towards the player or towards like I don't know monitor. Um, and he's just like out of the 2D plane entirely, just flying infinitely off of the stage. And I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't seem like something that would happen in the original. Like there's some skips like that, but like the dude was just playing the game, not trying to intentionally break it like you would have to otherwise.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm like, maybe it is worse, and that would suck because the generation's PC port already kind of sucked. So
Hmm.
I was hoping that this would be the nice one to actually like be the definitive version, but I don't know if it is yet. It doesn't seem like they've patched any of the old major skips though. So maybe there'll be more skips with if the game's more broken. I actually can't say yet.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, it's always interesting when they do that. Because
Yeah.
usually, again, if Ultimate's anything to go by, the remake is usually what why is this a remake? Why is it this quality upon release?
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate, and it makes it like hard to ask for remasters or remakes of games because it's like you guys don't really handle them well most of the times. So,
Mm-hmm.
do I want it? Like, I want Unleashed on PC, but you better treat it well
Mm-hmm.
because people would love it if it's good, but they will be so mad if it's not. So I
Mm-hmm.
worry about that one.
Well, no matter how bad Generations is, at least it has the shadow part that people seem to like, so
It's
I
so
guess they
good.
lucked out there.
Yeah, if you like Sonic, you have to go play that game. Genuinely, it is fantastic. I feel like Sega finally gets what is so good about Sonic and like are finally leaning into it, and they're not afraid to be edgy anymore because I feel like
Mm.
people are with it now, like back in the day when Shadow was super edgy, people were like, "Oh, it's so cringe," but now we're like, "Yes, give me more."
Damn. All
Pretty
right.
funny times we live in.
Yep. So sounds like we have reached modern day. Here we
Hmm.
are.
Modern
So
Dawn.
modern. Perfect. So I guess next I'd like to dive more into the live event side of things because you've done some live events.
Mhm.
So kind of go over the history with that.
Man, yeah. Funny enough, I think my first live speedrunning event wasn't really even a speedrunning event. Man, I gotta just look back. You can see all my badges back here, actually.
There they are.
The first one right there is oh gosh, pointing from my camera. There we go. Glitch Infinite. Um, so it was actually a Smash event mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the makings of what would become Pace there as well. On the side stage, still where Pace. Well, actually, no. Their main stage is actually in the big ballroom now, right?
Yeah,
Um,
they moved it into there. Yeah.
yeah, but where Pace was for the longest time on that little side stage over there was where they had it actually for Glitch. So I was very familiar by the time I went to Pace. And I remember I did for AF Wagers, I did a commentary for his run. He did Sonic Story. That was like my first time at like an in-person speedrunning event.
Hmm.
And it was really small and not even really a speedrunning event, kind of funny enough. And that wasn't until like 2022, maybe? Kind of funny to think about now. Um, Man, it's so hard to think about everything I've been to. I guess I gotta look at my badges.
I have
Yeah, I
like
think.
14 badges
Yeah.
or
I
something
think
now.
the next full one after that, oh man, and this is crazy jumping straight into it, was SGDQ 2023 in the summer. Or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
SGDQ obviously. But yeah, so crazy enough, Frontiers just came out right before this. And I was a decent runner for Frontiers and I was making the YouTube content, And so I submitted, didn't get in, but one of my good buds at the time, the Alpha Dolphin, did get in, and he was like pushing for record at that time. I think he held record a couple times, and he was like, "Dude, I need you there." And I was like, "I just started a new job. I cannot go a full week, but what I will do, I will fly out for a few days and I will do commentary for your run." Little did we know, because that was at that point it was just the games list.
Mm-hmm.
We found out it was the opening run of GDQ that year.
It
And I'm
sure
like,
was.
oh my god, that's insane. Like my first time at a in-person speedrunning event and I'm opening the thing. Huh? And so we were in calls practicing for that run so many times. Like we had to find that middle ground of like, let's keep this like flowing and natural and like actually just us while also having some planned bits as well. And I think we did a really good job. Like I think to date, it's probably my best commentary that I've ever done. Um, yeah, the only thing that sucked about that run was all of the commentary about it on Twitter and everything, or like all those threads that they do you could look at. Um, the only thing that sucked is that was the first time that we really saw like a sharp decline in GDQ viewership. That's
Mm,
all anyone was talking about.
really?
I was like, man, that sucks. Like, I feel like we just popped off, had such a good run, first really good Sonic game in years, and half the comments are not even about the run. I was like, dude, that blows. But everybody that commented about the run, they actually did really like it. So that was really cool. Uh, and then I was there for like 2 more days, went to parties, got to meet a lot of people, and then I dipped and went back home and had FOMO for the whole rest of the event.
Yeah, that's why I can't go. I'm either not there or I'm there the whole week. I wouldn't be able to. Like the one time I would have left a day before the finale, it was actually HDQ 2019. There was a big snowstorm. I went to the
Mm,
airport, missed my flight because snow. So, by sheer coincidence, I had to stay for the whole event.
wow.
So, it was meant to be, truly.
Yeah, sort of works out. Um, yeah, man, I went to a lot of events that year actually.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next two are Pace, so I actually went to Pace Summer. Man, that was an awesome event.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. That was the first time we had the Mario one all on the same screen tech stuff.
Yeah, that was
So
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
We also had an LTA that time too. Oh
Oh,
wait,
that was the SA2 or
hmm
LTA. Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
remember that.
So I did Frontiers Hundo the day one. I think I was like the second run. I think I was supposed to be the third run, but someone couldn't make it, so I ended up being the second run. Had like a 5 hour long run. And the funny part was Frontiers got patched literally the day before, and it was a huge physics update and everything.
Hmm.
So like I got screwed so many times in that run because the game was just changed, and I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to do? But I got through it, and then very next day, after doing a 5 hour run on stage, I had the LTA, which was like what 8, 9 hours at the time.
It, Like the whole day, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this was the best time for a Sonic Adventure 2 LTA that there literally could have been, right? Because KD4 just got record right before this. Aiden was getting back into the game for the first time in a long time. He took back second place, got a 21, all that stuff. Flub was coming up. Now he's third place, but back then he was like really starting to get to the upper echelon of runners. I was still fourth place. Emerald was like sixth place. We had like some of the best runners at that game
It was
in the
stacked.
world
It was
there.
stacked.
it there's never been anything that's been able to top that event. Um, and there was competition within the whole event too. Like Katie and Aiden were fighting for first the entire time. Also, even before that, there was a Hero Story tournament that had all of us in it as well, and Katie was able to beat Aiden in the finals. Um, and then Katie was like trying to secure the double win to be like, I am the best, undisputed, no matter what. And Aiden actually won. He got a new PB during the event and was able to beat Katie.
Oh my
And so they split the titles. It was really cool.
god.
Um, and so that was like the mid event hype. That happened. Aiden got such a good run. Katie wasn't able to close it out. Um, and then the last run comes up. I've been struggling all day because I literally just played 5 hours the day before. The day before that, I just flew in. It's super hot in the venue, so I'm struggling.
Oh, that was
I
like
am not
the
getting a
time
run
the air
going.
conditioner wasn't working or something. Oh my god.
Yeah, we were dying. It was so hot. We're like, open the doors or something. Like, it's so hot in here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we're sitting there, we're playing. I'm sitting right next to M, and we just got some food. We're like, we needed to take a break, and we're like, dude, like me and him are like 5 and 6 on the leaderboard, I think, out of the 7, and we're like, dude, we got to do better than this. Like, we can. I know we can. And we're looking at the times. We're like, dude, we could get third so easily. Like, we can do this. And I'm on a run, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is a really good run. It was like just as bad as PB pace nerves, even though it wasn't close to my PB really. It's like maybe 20, 30 seconds off.
Oh, the live events
Um,
will get you.
they do, yeah. And I can hear it. I can hear the venue switch their focus from Aiden, who just got his 21 that ended up winning the event, right?
Mhm.
Over to me, like maybe 2/3 through the run. And everybody's talking about me right behind me. The commentators, they're just talking straight up about my run. I'm like, oh my god, this is a high like nothing else. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, I gotta lock in, I gotta get third now. This is the chance. Like the last run's coming up. Doesn't matter, I need to do this. And I ended up closing it out. I think I ended up having the last boss that's usually pretty easy. I actually messed up and lost like 2 to 3 seconds. This will be important later. Um, but I was like, you know what? It's fine. I got third place. This is awesome. Like nobody really has time to beat me anyway. And I'm looking at M, and he just lost a run as I'm closing it out, and so he starts another one. And I'm not really paying attention to him because I'm so locked in. But I look over after I finish and I'm done celebrating. I got third place. Yes. And I look over at him and I'm like, wait, that's a really good run, actually. He could actually beat me. And I just go and return to the crowd and sit around with all my homies just sitting around me like a circle. They're like, oh my God, bro, I think he's going to beat you. And literally, he beat me by a second at the end of it. All because I messed up on that final boss. I'm like, no. I'm like, you know what? I'll take the L for the event though, because it was so hype that there was so much turnover right at the end. And me and him both ended up being in top 4, which is exactly what we wanted. We knew we weren't getting first or second because I and Katie were just so good at the time. But we got the win between us, you know? So that was cool.
It was so
Uh,
loud at the end there. I remember.
I've I've never felt that crowd erupt so crazy. Like the only other times I feel like I've seen that is like 120 star when people get like a crazy one for those
Oh yeah.
LTAs, you know? That's wild when that happens.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was an electric moment. I'm not gonna forget that one. Even though I took the L, at least I got to see my boy get a victory, you know?
It was just 1 second, you know.
Exactly,
Close
yeah. And
enough.
yeah, it was a really fun event. That's probably one of my favorite live events I've ever been to, is that pace.
That pace was fantastic all around. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, got to meet so many cool people too. Like I really like the vibe of pace events.
Hmm. That
They're
was the
so
first time I
fun.
got to meet a lot of the SMB one people that are newer, at least in my realm, because I started in like 2017, and a lot of the
Mhm.
top runners came around like 2020, COVID starting era. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a really good event
Yeah.
all around.
I haven't been able to been, now that we're talking about it, I haven't been to Pace at all this year, so I'm definitely making a point to go to next Pace summer, so that'll be cool. Looking
Yeah,
forward to
I
that.
in 1 week from today I will be there. So because they keep accepting me, it's fine. How dare
Yeah.
they? But
I'm gonna have to submit other runs next time as well, because I feel like I usually don't submit much to Pace,
mhm.
but it's always fun doing those events live.
I submit to every pace in GDQ, and like I have a streak that's lasted like 2 years now for both. It's so
That's
weird.
awesome.
And not only that, I mean like PAX West and GDQX. I don't know what's going
Yo.
on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know you hit up GDQX. Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know what I did, but here we are.
Just good event runs. That'll do it.
Apparently. But yeah, so pace coming up soon. I gotta DS for that.
Mhm.
So because it's a category I haven't played in like 4 months.
Yeah, that's how I felt about Hundo when I did that run. I was like, "Oh, I needed to play this more before I came here."
Hmm.
Plus the patch, rough.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping they'd accept another game I submitted, because I was a lot more. I'd been playing that for like 3 months, but oh well,
Yeah.
this is fine. It'll be fine. Anyway, obviously you've done a few more events.
Hmm. Let's see.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think the main ones after that, I didn't necessarily have any like big events or anything yet. I just kind of wanted to hang out. Like
Hmm.
the next one on there, we have Pace Fall. I don't think I did anything during that one. I think I forgot to
Fair.
submit in time. There was no LTA. I was just hanging. I was just hanging with the homies.
The big chilling.
Actually, that trip was actually crazy because I just remembered I didn't go full week. Um, I had a family member's birthday, and they're in like Midwest, so I went to go visit them for the first weekend of Pace, and then I flew out to Maryland, and then went to Pace for like half the week, and then after that, we went to Sonic Expo, which is in Dallas, which is going to be the same time this year. It's the second weekend of Pace. Um, So I'm going to that instead of Fall Pace this year. But I did all three of those in the same week.
Oh my
So
god.
that was what was crazy about that pace. I didn't want to submit because I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be there at the time that I would need to be. Um, that was one of the craziest weeks of my life, but it was so fun getting to see so many family members, so many good friends as well. Like that was insane. And then I just went to work on Monday and I'm like, guys, you wouldn't believe the week I just had.
Yeah,
That was
so
a fun one.
Sonic Expos. Oh, newer thing.
Yeah. Last year was Sonic Expo's, I believe, first official event. It was like a combination of multiple different Sonic event crews coming together and working on an event. And in their first event, it was the biggest event, Sonic fan event in history.
Hmm.
Uh, and this one, it already has way more registrants, like by a lot. And it's going to be in 2 weeks from today, actually. The last weekend of Pace, same thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. I guess we could, while we're talking about that, we can talk about that at next Sonic Expo.
Yeah.
Last time we were talking about doing some speedrunning stuff, but it didn't really come together because it was their first event. It was really hard to get stuff figured out. They were already doing so much, but they're like, next year we got you speedrunning stuff. So they got me and M on the committee, and we've been talking to them about it and trying to figure out what would be cool. Um, I don't know how much they've officially talked about, but I guess I could just talk about some of the stuff that's going on. So we're gonna do another Sonic Adventure 2 LTA.
Oh my god.
um, a little bit shorter this time. It's only gonna be, I think, about 4 hours of active runs, and then you could do your last run after that,
Mhm.
which I think is pretty reasonable. It's just to show off, hey, like this is what Sonic Adventure 2 speedrunning's like. Check it out. So me and Em are gonna be in that, as well as some other really solid runners. Um, funny enough, we just had at GDQX, we did commentary for Supersonic's run. Going to be
True.
doing that same exact run again at Sonic Expo, actually. Banger run.
Oh my god. That was
So
so
sick.
good. That was so fun. Like this JDQX is the first time I felt like I could really do commentary. Even
Yeah,
if I'm
it
like
was
not
awesome.
even if I'm not like a runner of said game.
I had watched that run before, but I had no idea what was going on, so I was just there for color commentary. Basically, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just being blown away by what's happening right now on my screen.
No, he
So
fucking crushed it. It was
he
crazy.
did.
I
Yeah,
wow.
I'm praying it goes as well at Sonic Expo.
Yeah, it's such a hard game too. Like there's like two tricks every stage and they're all like ridiculously hard. It's crazy.
Yeah, Supersonic just made it look easy. It was
Yeah, it was
actually
just
crazy.
one stage that didn't go well. And that's
Yeah,
the other thing with that game. If you make a mistake, it's like 2 minutes. It's I don't
yeah.
know. That game will
Um,
always amaze me. But yeah. My Sonic experiences, I have a Sonic 2 run on the board. So there we go.
let's go.
There's my
I got
contribution to the Sonic community.
I gotta do that too. I started learning Sonic 2 for a while, but I did not commit to that.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, Sonic Expo will be fun. We're gonna do more speedrunning stuff, which is awesome. I hope there's not much technical difficulties, but they haven't really dealt with stuff like this before, so it's gonna be a learning curve for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a cool event. I'm really excited to go meet some Sonic creators and people that are just fans of Sonic content. Maybe I'll get recognized this time. I think M had a couple people that were like, "Oh my gosh, it's Emerald," and we're like, "I have no idea who you are, but hi."
Yeah, been
That was
there.
kind of cool.
That's how I
Um,
felt at GDQX if I was like hanging with, the big streamers and people just keep coming up for pictures and autographs and I'm just like, yeah,
let's go.
this is the
Yeah, it's a cool
GDQX
feeling.
experience.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool feeling because like especially if you go to like a pace, like everyone there is a speedrunner or you've seen them around in chats.
Yeah, GD like
Um,
speedrun events, like everyone knows each other all the
mhm.
time. Like you don't have to
And
worry
then
about any of that. Like we're all
yeah,
just chilling. We're, we're all cool with each other, but
hmm
when you get into like some of the bigger events, there are people that are there because they're fans. Like
yeah,
and that causes like a whole different dynamic to exist.
yeah, definitely. I'm really curious how Sonic Expo is gonna go. Like
Hmm.
me and M aren't huge by any means in the general Sonic space, but like I think there's enough that there'll be some people that are like, "Oh, I know who you are. That's cool."
Hmm.
So that could be interesting. We'll see. I'll keep the tally if it happens.
Yeah, what else all
um,
goes on there?
yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Like one of the big ones is they do like a cosplay contest, and they're
Hmm.
it was pretty fun last time while it was going on, or the morning of. They had like a Chaos Emerald hunt where you would like go around and find a cosplayer, and they would have like a little sign, and you'd have to know that they were doing it. You walk up to them, and they give you a little thing, and then it would be a hint to the next one, like a little scavenger hunt. So that was really cool, and then you would get like a little goodie bag or something if you did it. Um, and then they have the cosplay contest is sick though. There's like hundreds of entrants for that.
Oh
Last
damn.
time they did a concert with Johnny Gioeli, which is the lead singer of Crush 40.
Oh wow.
That was super sick. And because M was like an invited guest, he got to bring us in to the concert first. So we were like front row, got to like talk to him and everything. It
Oh
was super
damn.
sick.
Yeah.
This year he was supposed to go, but I think he had like conflicting stuff, so he ended up not being able to make it. But we're gonna have the singer from Sonic R.
Oh nice.
So that's gonna be super sick. I'm really looking forward to that. Sad we're not having Johnny again because they could have done some cool stuff, but um, yeah, the concert will be fun. They're doing like a little rave thing too the night before as well. Um, they have whole gaming areas, obviously a lot of like artist booths and stuff like that, and people selling Sonic clothes. So there's a lot of cool stuff to do, and honestly, it's mostly for the social aspect of just meeting other Sonic creators and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, like I got to hang out with Isabel, if you know, and Jet makes all the
Yeah,
funny
yeah.
Sonic memes.
Yeah, yeah, I've
Jet
been
is just
watching
as
that.
funny in person. It's wild.
That's great. Yeah,
uh,
she is in a lot of her or his stuff for like what
mhm.
does she do? Like Tails and Amy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy if you like, especially Shadow '05 sounds exactly like that version of Tails. I was like, wow, actually
Hmm.
very impressive. And then Sam Procrastinates was a cool one to meet last time too, especially now that he's working with Sega. He's like actually employed there. Really cool.
Hmm. Wow.
A lot of people that I got to meet that I didn't even know before, and I was like, oh wow, like you do some really cool stuff, and now I follow them and all that. So cool getting to meet other people that do Sonic content as well.
Yeah.
That's like honestly the main reason to go for me, as fun as the rest of it is.
Yeah, it's cool that communities can come together for these events. Like
Hmm.
when I found out speedrunning did it, I was all in for it. Now I just am addicted. Can't stop going to
Yep.
them.
I know
Oh,
they're so fun.
sometimes I wonder how much money I've blown on it, but
Yeah,
it's worth it.
definitely. It's definitely, if it's not at five figures for me, it's getting close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, the only other ones I think we have are what SGDQ this year, where I also didn't have any runs in or anything, but I just wanted to go hang out, and
this was
I mean we
this past SGQ best event I've been to easily.
really.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I think it was up there for me. I kind of liked not having any commitments or anything for me really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we got to see a ton of Minneapolis, hang out with everybody all the time. It was great vibes, honestly.
It was the first event I really like signed up to do stuff. Like it was the first time I was part of that big Discord group. I think you're in it too, that like
Yeah,
planned things. Like I'd never had that experience before, so.
yeah, that was awesome. It was like honestly during it, it was a lot, but thinking back on it, it's only good memories.
Oh my god, yeah.
But it was so exhausting after like hanging out with everybody all day, staying up late into the night, get up early to go do a thing, and just repeat.
I was chilling. It was good.
It was so fun though, yeah.
And then I only needed to be available on stage for 5 minutes, In and out, we're good.
Go.
Doing me for 5 minutes, as they say on the schedule.
Let's
Unfortunately.
go.
Anyway, but yes. Good event.
Um, yeah, that
Happy.
was a great event. There's a lot of fun times at that one. Definitely don't. It was my first time being full week at GDQ actually too, so I think that's really why I wanted to do it.
Hmm.
Was like I felt like I kind of shortchanged myself a little bit on the first GDQ, not being able to go that long. So I was like, next SGDQ I can't miss, and I didn't. So,
You
and it
sure
was
did.
worth it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Hmm.
And I love where the venue now, where they have it in downtown. Oh,
Yeah,
so
there's a
good.
lot of like really nice food spots over there.
Bit expensive, but I mean, like you never got to experience the double tree then, I don't think. So it was like,
uh,
yeah,
no, I
it
don't
was
think so.
just at SGE 2023 they changed hotels. So like all the
Yeah.
SGEs before them were at this other place that they've had for years and years. And there was just nowhere to go without a car. Like they had
Mm.
like, like five places to eat nearby, but if you wanted to go anywhere else, you needed to drive because it was
Oh man.
on the corner of two major highway. And
Oh,
so
that's
I'm so
brutal.
glad they moved downtown.
Yeah, it's really nice how like walkable it is. You could just go walk
Mhm.
down to the Target or like a random little corner store or something, buy whatever you need, and then there's restaurants everywhere, and they're all. Honestly, I don't think I ate anywhere there. There was like, oh, that was bad. It
Yeah.
was all really solid at worst.
No, that's a great location. And then I like where HADQ moved to. Kind of. The weather's a little, and the hotel bathrooms are a little.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
I've
had.
heard the stories.
Yeah, I don't. I guess you haven't been to an AGDQ recent ever
Not yet, no.
actually. Just that's yeah.
Hmm.
So that'll be
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm
But
thinking about this one. I
yeah,
think I might submit Shadow Gems on the second
ooh,
submission window, but I'm
that
also not like world record holder contender,
yeah.
so
If anything,
eh.
you could be comms, right? So
Yeah, that's true.
that's a perfect like game for this event
Hmm.
though. Like perfect for the
Yeah.
second submission period. So
Yeah, I think that would probably get in, but it really just depends on the strength of the submission. Like it might end up
mhm.
being an SGDQ thing if nobody really good submits to be in person. Like I know me and M are really on the fence with it. Trying to think who else would be good because like the other top runners are either don't travel or they're like too far. Like Onaku's in Sweden, Josh
Mhm.
is in Australia. Um,
Damn, yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of hard. Um,
Probably
it's just
figure
like
something
a
out at
lot.
least. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's either European or somewhere else in the world that are like the best runners outside of like me, I guess New would be a good one, but I don't know if she's planning on going. Yeah, she's crazy. She literally did her first runs yesterday and got second place. I'm like, okay, well that's just not fair. So she's American, so she could make it probably.
Mm,
Has some friends going to that one as well and nearby. So there's a world where she submits it and would be a really good runner for it.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
I
think
think
she
this
did
HDQ
the
is gonna
colors
pop
run.
off. A lot of people are going to this one that I know at least.
Awesome.
I don't
Yeah,
think the
I really wanted to go. Timing was just off for me.
yeah. I don't know. I don't think the registration is like camping off like it did for SGDQ. Like I'm waiting to submit until I see if I get in or not.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I don't see there. I don't think there's any universe where I don't go. I'll be honest, but
Mhm.
just want to make sure. So
Yeah, I think me and M might submit it as a race, and if we get in, we'll go. Or
mhm.
if they'll let us do it online, maybe. But that feels a little sad to do like our first GDQ as runners,
Yeah,
on
be
online.
online.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would feel kind of sad.
my first GDQ run was online, so I kind of get it.
Yeah,
But that was COVID
yeah,
era. No choice at that point. But
yeah, exactly.
so yeah, if you can do it in person, that'd be cool. And I think that
Mhm.
game has a really good chance.
Definitely, it's
So
super sweet as a speed run, and it's not so long that I think it's like a hard ask to get in. Like it'll
mhm.
probably be around an hour by that point. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's everything, right?
pretty much, yeah. That is the
Anything,
history of DawnSR.
the whole history of you. I mean, is there anything we didn't discuss that you'd want to, that you could think of?
I don't know. I think we pretty much touched on everything. I mean, the only
Yeah.
thing we didn't go super deep into is the most recent event. But like we said, we did comms for Supersonic's
Yeah.
run. I did get in as a runner for SA2, but it was a backup runner.
Hmm.
And unfortunately for me, I mean, fortunately for everybody else, everybody made it.
Yeah. Well, you
But I would
still
have
get the
loved to show it
benefits,
off.
right? No,
Yep,
you didn't have to pay, got a shirt,
got the
chilling.
runner shirt.
Big chilling. It's all good.
Yeah. So not complaining at all. Hopefully, I could show it off because I'm pretty local to TwitchCon, so
Hmm.
they're gonna be there for the next couple of years. So hopefully, I'll be able to do a run. Maybe I'll do the new game next year at TwitchCon. I'm
Hmm.
sure they would like to see that one because it's a 6 speed run, and I will stay current on it. So hopefully, that's what I'll be submitting next year. That and SA2 probably.
Yeah. You probably have a really good chance of getting in eventually, at least.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Hopefully next year. Yeah. I don't know how these events are going to look in the future for me, but I went to like everything this year for me. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
that's so fair. That's how I felt in 2023, going to like both paces, one GDQ,
Hmm.
like and Sonic Expo. I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a lot."
Yeah. Uh, at least I have a job now, so we're chilling, but we'll see
Yeah,
how
it
things
definitely
go.
helps.
But yeah, I guess that's everything. I'll ask about do you have like future plans in terms of YouTube content or speedrunning?
Yeah. So for right now, like near future is literally just gonna be focusing on this game for speedrunning and YouTube content as well.
Hmm.
But there's some other stuff I want to do. I still want to do more Sonic Adventure content, like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast version had a crazy discovery where if you like take out the memory card as it's loading a file, you just get everything. Like you can go straight to the end of the game. You can get 180 emblems via underflow.
What the? Oh, okay.
It's crazy. So I want to make a video on that, but I've just been so busy I haven't been able to put it out. So I'll make a video on that eventually.
Well,
And
I'll make sure I'm subscribed. I'm subscribed. It's fine.
yeah, it's a crazy one. It's gonna be hard to break it down how it actually works because I don't even really fully understand it right
Well,
now.
the best kind
And
of knowledge.
exactly, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, hey, bear with me because I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Perfect.
um, and then past that, I'm considering if I want to do another one of these super long challenges. I could always do all the. I already did the 3D mainline games. I could do all the 2D mainline games, but that would require me learning Sonic 4. So I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
But realistically, based off of how well this video is doing, I probably will. So Maybe sometime middle next year I'll start learning all the 2D games. I think it'll be easier to learn than the 3D games, just because the run's probably going to be more like 12 hours instead of like 24 as a goal.
Mhm.
So I think I'll probably learn it sometime middle next year if I'm going to do it, and then do the run towards the end of the year, kind of like how I did for this. And then maybe one day I'll do the whole thing together. I don't know. That it would be painful, but I think it would be cool. So
Lot to look
yeah,
forward to.
those are the loose future plans.
Hmm. Have you ever thought about like branching outside of Sonic stuff, or is that kind of
Yeah,
place to be?
I guess I didn't really talk about it. I don't know, what games have I run. So I did Neon White when that game came out. That was
Oh, really?
sick. Neon White was really fun.
I've heard
Would
a lot of good
recommend.
things about it.
Yeah, it was great. Me and like Trader and M were grinding that for a while.
Hmm.
Trader got really good. And then what's it called? I did Breath of the Wild for a while. I almost
Mm.
got sub 30. I mean, almost. It was like a few minutes off. I think I got like a 33-minute time.
Hmm.
Which is not necessarily easy. That's a hard speed run to pick
No,
up.
yeah, that's pretty good from what I've seen. So,
Yeah, I wanted to get a sub 30, but I didn't want to commit the time, and I was still grinding for 21, and it was kind of a side project. So I was like, I don't know if I want to go that deep. Um, there was a while where I thought about just becoming like a speedrun reviewer.
really
Yeah, I came out
interesting.
with a couple videos, but they didn't really do well. I think mostly because my YouTube channel is like it's a Sonic channel ultimately. Like
Hmm.
most of my viewers are Sonic, not really as much speedrun. It's like 80-20, like Sonic to speedrun viewers.
Really interesting.
So when I tried to branch out, it just didn't really work.
Yeah. What does
So
reviewer entail?
yeah, so my thought was is I wanted to do this maybe like 2 videos a year where I like pick a game, get really good at it, try to hit like a benchmark. Like so in that one I wanted to get kind of close to sub 30. That was sort of my excuse to learn Breath of the Wild for content.
Got it. Okay.
um, and then kind of go through what's the difficulty of the run, how much do I recommend it for others, how fun is it, stuff like that. It's obviously very subjective. But I still think it's a cool idea. I think one day if I get tired of doing Sonic content, I would make a channel called Speedrun Review or something and do that. And that would be the only thing I did on the channel, regardless of whether or not it was successful. Who knows? Or it would be successful. Who knows? But it sounds fun, and I think like it's probably a thing I might do like towards the end of my speedrunning career, just as for fun, just a nice little passion project.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's just like endless opportunity for whatever. Could literally do anything with that.
yeah, yeah, I've definitely done speedruns of like really random things, but I think with that series, I'd want to do like the more iconic ones. Oh yeah, like recently I did Prince of Persia so I could get the game for free
Oh, like the whole
with the
beat
challenge
it so
thing.
you can on Steam get the refund or whatever.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
learned the run. I got a decent time. So I earned it. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of random stuff, but mostly Sonic. I did Super Fancy Pants Adventure, if you know that one, for my OGs.
Yeah,
That game is sick.
I know a few about the Flash game speedrun type of things,
Hmm.
so not too
Yeah, that
much,
game
but a
I
little.
think is one of the games that got me really interested in like movement in games because I was like, wow, that's so satisfying. Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. Well, have we reached the conclusion?
I guess so. Like the deepest recesses of the DawnSR speedrun history.
Well, that's what we try to do here is just spew every single ounce of knowledge out of the guests. So I think we've done our part here.
Let's go.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Let me do the lovely shout out command. Thank you, as
Let's
always,
go.
for existing. The rare Twitch W of additions to their website.
Let's go.
Anyway, uh, by the way, if there's any questions, feel free to ask now. But until then, you can have the floor with shout outs.
Yeah, so I've yapped a lot about my content. If you want to see any of that in action, definitely go check me out. DawnSR on YouTube and Twitch as well. I'll be streaming a lot of speedruns, especially of the new game coming out right now. Um, I've been streaming. I think I streamed like 4 times this week. Kind of crazy for me. That doesn't usually happen. New game's good. What can I say? So a lot of streams coming up soon. A lot of cool YouTube content. I'm gonna keep going until I get that play button. So that might take me a few years. And we'll see after that. But for now, plenty of good content. You can even years from now watch it. So, and if you want to see some stupid yapping on Twitter, you could do that too, or X, whatever. Also, Blue Sky. I need to start posting on there, but I'm also DawnSR there too. So,
Don't worry, I have officially added. So on the stream, I link Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter as the defaults. I've officially added Blue Sky
I didn't even
because
see that. Nice.
superior website. Fuck Twitter,
Mhm.
Blue Sky all the way to the moon or whatever they fucking say nowadays. I am a Blue Sky advocate.
Same,
Beautiful
same.
website. So
I need to start actually posting there. It's just weird for the first one. I'm like, what do I put?
yeah, it's fair, but God, it's so much better for like promotion of your stuff and just it's what
Yeah.
Twitter was before, Anyway,
Yep. Yeah.
it is there, so highly recommend that as a source of information as well. So, anyway,
Mhm.
I think that's everything though. We can end things off here. Thanks for watching. Watch the streams, watch the tube. You know the rules. I have my own links on all those sites too, but follow the guest, more important that way. But and I guess let's see. I need to think how I'm gonna live stream my next couple episodes. I'm not sure how it'll work because I record in advance for speedrun events, and Pace is coming up next week, so
Yeah.
gotta figure that out. So probably we'll see 2 more interviews within the next few days if you're watching live. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, yep. Peace out, everyone. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.